Chapter 3282. After Rong Mo left, Luo Qingshun looked at his back view and spoke softly. It sounded like she said it, but it also sounded like it came from the bottom of her heart. From now on, we will go our separate ways. The next time we meet, we will be enemies. Rong Mo seemed to have sensed something. When he turned to look at the prison cell, Luo Qingshun had already sat back down on the chair and was deep in thought. He felt his heart skip a beat, and he felt an inexplicable pain. After all, how could he not be sad when he saw the person he loved the most leave his side? Rong Mo felt terrible, but he had to hold on to his country. For the country, he was willing to sacrifice everything. Moreover, he had to wait until the military power in the imperial court returned to his hands, and until Yu Country's military power could restrain Jade Country. By then, he would be able to go to northern Liang to bring her back. That was what he thought when he sent her out of the palace. However, he didn't expect that the current Luo Qingshun was no longer the girl who would give up everything for him. The prison cell in the Supreme Court was very cold. Luo Qingshun only stayed in it for a night, and she felt uncomfortable all over. The next morning, Rong Mo's personal eunuch personally went to the Supreme Court to fetch her. When the brocade clothes were presented, she felt as though a lifetime had passed. How long had it been since she saw such bright clothes? Once upon a time, when he had just ascended to the throne. Even though the harem said to be frugal, he still gave her the best silk and satin. Now, she was only wearing plain white brocade clothes when she traveled back and forth between the cold palace and the Supreme Court. The king said that he will definitely bring imperial concubine Qingfei back to Yu Country. Luo Qingshun only laughed coldly and didn't say anything else. Leaving Yu Country was just the beginning. If she returned, it would be a whole new world. Rong Mo was surprised that Northern Liang Country agreed to be on good terms with Yu Country. This old man who was over 50 years old actually agreed to it this time. However, thinking about it, Luo Qingshun was a heaven's fate master after all. Even if she didn't have those abilities after defying the heavens and changing her fate, she was still different from ordinary people. At that time, Luo Qingshun was wearing a bright red robe with plum blossom patterns, a pair of soft-soled shoes embroidered with pearls on her feet, and a gold-inlaid dragonfly hairpin on her head, with a cinnabar up between her eyebrows. Rong Mo stood on the stage and watched her leave in a daze. Yunfei, who was standing to the side, pouted and said, "It's not that King is reluctant to part with Sister Qingfei, but this is just a temporary measure. Once the Yu Country's military is strong enough, King can bring Sister Qingfei back." These words sounded very sensible, but Yunfei's eyes were filled with ruthlessness and viciousness. She had spent so much effort to finally make her leave Rong Mo's side and leave the Yu Country that belonged to her and Rong Mo. How could she let her return? However, Yunfei didn't expect Luo Qingshun to choose Northern Liang Country, which was further away from Yu Country. She always thought that she would choose Jade Country, which was closer to Yu Country. After all, Jade Country's king was a handsome man. Compared to that old man in Northern Liang Country, Jade Country was still better. However, Luo Qingshun's choice made Yunfei even happier. This way, it would be impossible for her to return to Yu Country. After all, she has been with me through so many difficult times. Is it strange that I can't bear to part with her? Rong Mo's eyes were cold as he looked at Luo Qingshun's back view. He couldn't bear to part with her. He knew what Yunfei did, but he didn't expose her for the sake of Yu Country and his throne. This book came from Chapter 3283. Yunfei's eyes flashed with anger when she heard this. She didn't think highly of the position of Empress, but she truly liked Rong Mo. Only a woman she liked would get jealous. Once she got jealous, she would do all sorts of unimaginable things. Perhaps Yunfei was really a naive and pure girl before entering the palace, but when the flames of jealousy burned in her heart, the word naive was stuck in her youth. Yunfei has said too much. Yunfei bowed. Yunfei won't disturb the king from sending Sister Qingfei off. As soon as she finished speaking, she pretended to be disappointed and walked down from the high platform of the city wall. Actually, it was still a problem whether Luo Qingshun could safely reach northern Liang. Her personal maid, Xiao Wan, was sent by her. Later on, she was condemned and punished many times because of Xiao Wan's information. Although Xiao Wan was just a maid, she was a maid that she had carefully nurtured. Not only was her martial arts good, she was also smart. This time, she had also arranged for her to poison her. Once a divinator changed their fate, they would lose all of their abilities. Ying Yunfei had many spies in the palace, so naturally she knew that Luo Qingchun had already used her heaven-defying fate-changing ability. She had lost her invulnerability and her invulnerability. As for where she used her ability to defy the heavens and change her fate, she had no idea. After all, it was better if she used it. What could an ordinary person do? Rongmo didn't call out to Ying Yunfei, because at this moment, his gaze was completely attracted by Luo Qingxin. Although the distance between them was very far, she could feel a touch of determination from her back. It was as though she would never come back after leaving Yu country. Qing! He seemed to want to call out to him, but when the words reached his throat, he swallowed them back down. He couldn't call out to her. Only with the help of Northern Liang's gang leader could Yu country gain some time to survive. I will definitely bring you back. Once he lost something that he had always possessed, he would feel a sense of loss in his heart, an indescribable sense of loss. However, Rongmo didn't know that Luo Qingchun was very happy. Leaving Yu country was probably the happiest thing for her since coming to this world. Although the timing wasn't perfect, it wasn't bad for her. The Northern Liang Kingdom was located at the northernmost side, and they had to pass through the Jade Nation to reach it. The scenery along the way wasn't bad. The mountains were clear, the water was clear, and the birds were chirping. Along the way, Xiao Wan kept chattering in her ear, as if she always wanted to stop and rest. Luo Qingshun felt that this person was very strange, so she had the system investigate Xiao Wan's identity. The system indicated that it would deduct the corresponding exchange points for investigating her identity, but it was in a good mood recently, so it gave Luo Qingshun a piece of information for free. The result was just as she thought. This woman called Xiao Wan was Ying Yunfei's person. It had to be said that she hid it very well, because Xiao Wan had stayed by the original owner's side for a year, but the original owner didn't know. Since you're tired, why don't we stay in this tonight? Luo Qingshun lifted the curtain and said, "Everyone has worked hard. Let's have a good rest tonight and continue our journey tomorrow." When her voice fell, she did not forget to look at Xiao Wan's expression. Her expression was as happy as if gold had fallen from the sky. It seemed like there was something fishy about this Dragon Gate Inn. However, nothing ventured, nothing gained. There was no need to keep this kind of servant girl by her side, much less bring her to Northern Liang. Some scourges should be nipped in the cradle from the start to get rid of future troubles. This book came from Chapter 3284. Thank you, Your Highness Qingfei. Everyone stopped and bowed respectfully. In order to express Yu country's sincerity, the people escorting Luo Qingshun to Bailiang country were all Rongmo's trusted aides. They only listened to Rongmo's orders and were responsible for protecting Luo Qingshun. Thus, no matter how down and out Luo Qingshun was, they were all respectful to her. You don't have to call me Your Highness in the future. Luo Qingshun's brows moved slightly, and she smiled. If you're not used to calling me by my name, you can call me Mississippi this. Everyone looked at each other in dismay and was clearly in a difficult position. Luo Qingshun thought for a bit and said, "Since I'm going to Bailiang country, then calling me Your Highness Qingfei is inappropriate. After all, the king of Bailiang country isn't king, you right?" In the next second, everyone cupped their hands and said, "This subordinate understands." Dragon Gate Inn was at the border between Yu country and Jade country. Other than merchants, the people who came and went were all outlaws. Thus, when they walked into the inn, they felt a strange atmosphere. There were a few people sitting in the lobby with swords on the table. Other than liquor, they also ordered fresh red beef. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes and saw Xiao Wan from the corner of her eyes. She took a detour from a further place before going upstairs. It seemed that if she had guessed correctly, this group of people were the ones that Ying Yunfei had prepared to kill her. However, other than being a bit bigger, there was nothing good about them. Just as they were about to check in, an old man wearing white came down from the second floor. He was very tall and gave off an immortal aura. However, the wrinkles on his face made people feel that he was very old. The moment Luo Qingshun brushed past him, a note appeared in her sleeve. She was startled and wanted to say something, but the old man had already walked far away. Although she didn't know if he was a friend or a foe, she felt that he wasn't a bad person. Qingfei, oh no. Xiaowan scratched her head and smiled. Then I'll call you Miss from now on. Miss, I'll go prepare dinner for you. You can rest first. All right. Xiaowan's smile was very sweet. If she didn't know that she was Ying Yunfei's person, let alone the original owner, even she wouldn't be able to tell that she was a bad person. After closing the door and windows, Luo Qingshun quietly opens the note. The handwriting was delicate, and every stroke was vigorous and forceful. Such handwriting did not seem like it was written by the white-bearded old man. Everyone in the Dragon Gate was a ghost. Luo Qingshun knew that the ghosts here meant enemies. Originally, she thought that only the people in the lobby were enemies, but now it seemed that even the shopkeeper and the waiter were enemies. It seemed that Ying Yunfei had no intention of letting her leave Yu country alive. She really didn't know why she hated her so much. Did Rong and Mo treat her well? No, Rong and Mo didn't treat her well. However, he made everyone feel that he was good to her, which made him even more envious. In the end, he became the target of public criticism. Luo Qingshun didn't know if she didn't understand Rongmo's love or if Rongmo's love was too narrow. His country was greater than his love. It was too much, since everyone in the Dragon Gate was an enemy. Then she didn't need to care about anyone's life. Xiaowan would definitely do something to the food, and Rongmo's trusted aides would also fall for it. However, their lives wouldn't be in danger. Since that was the case, then let's have a beautiful battle. In an instant, Luo Qingshun took out her Phoenix Dance sword from her storage space. It was probably because she hadn't experienced this kind of world in a long time that her Phoenix Dance sword was a bit excited. This book came from Chapter 3285. There was an open space full of flowers in the backyard of the inn. The colorful flowers looked especially beautiful under the light of the setting sun. Luo Qingshun looked down from the window, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. Not long later, Xiaowan knocked on the door and said with a smile, "Miss, the food is ready. I'll bring it in for you." "Amen, leave it there for now." Luo Qingshun waved her hand and said, "I saw that the sea of flowers in the backyard of the inn is very beautiful. I'm going down for a stroll." "Ah." Xiaowan froze, and a dark light flashed through her eyes. Although Luo Qingshun didn't have those abilities, she was still a Heaven's Fate Master. To be absolutely safe, she had to eat poison. But why did she suddenly want to go out now? "Miss, are you going to look at the flowers?" Xiaowan asked. "But it's already dark, and this is the border of Yu. It's not safe at night." "It's fine." Luo Qingshun shrugged and pursed her lips into a smile. "Don't worry. Don't I have the king's trusted aide protecting me?" As soon as her voice fell, she picked up the osmanthus cake on the table and said, "This cake is exquisite and should taste good." Xiaowan froze and then immediately smiled. "It's delicious." "Miss, it'll definitely be delicious." The worry in her heart disappeared at this moment. It seems like this Luo Qingshun was just as Imperial Concubine said. Stupid. How could this kind of person become a Heaven's Fate Master while her talented older sister was kicked out of the ancient restriction sect and died from a heart attack? She was able to become Ying Yunfei's trusted aide because she was willing. She was also the one who told Ying Yunfei about the ancient restriction sect's Fate Master. Moreover, she knew that Luo Qingshun had already used the ability to change fate. She really was stupid. Such a stupid person was suitable to be an ordinary person. She didn't have the qualifications to be a Heaven's Fate Master. The flowers in the backyard bloomed beautifully. Luo Qingshun sniffed and smelled a faint fishy smell in the sea of flowers. It was like the smell of blood mixed with the soil. It made people feel disgusted by the fragrance of the flowers. A light breeze brushed past. There seemed to be footsteps approaching, and there seemed to be quite a number of people. She threw the pastries in her hand into the sunset, forming a beautiful arc. With her back to them, she said, 16 people to take the life of a weak woman like me. Isn't it a little too grand? In the next second, the sound of footsteps stopped. The people holding swords and sabers looked at each other. What was originally thought to be an assassination had suddenly turned into an open killing. It was inevitable that people would feel fear in their hearts. This person called Luo Qingshun shouldn't have known that someone wanted to kill her. But if she didn't know, why would she say those words? I don't care anymore. At this moment, the leader roared, all of you, once we leave the border, we won't have a chance. Yes. In the blink of an eye, Luo Qingshun leapt up and pulled out her phoenix dance sword from its sheath. Under the setting sun, the phoenix dance sword's entire body was dyed red, filled with killing intent. When did she get a sword? Who cares? Her head is worth 100,000 taels of silver. If you want to leave, then quickly leave. The remaining people will get more. We won't leave. There are more than 10 of us against one of her. The kind-looking shopkeeper took off his clothes and bared his upper body. He held a large saber and said, all of you, attack for this old man. Shio, shio, shio. The sabers and swords collided in the wind and danced in the sky. Her lips curled into a cold smile as she said, seeking death. But in the next second, a sword light flashed in the southeast, and all the people near her fell to the ground. This book came from Chapter 3286. The opponent's speed was too fast, so fast that Luo Qingshun didn't even see it clearly before the battle was over. It wasn't because the people sent by Ing Yunfei were strong, but because they were too strong and didn't give them any chance to resist. Oh, the leader held his chest and stammered, come out for me. There was still no movement in the surroundings. Even the wind seemed to have stopped. Luo Qingshun could feel that the strong sword qi came from the southeast, but she didn't know what kind of person it was. She only knew that the other side used a sword, and the sword qi was very strong. This was because she could clearly feel that the sword in that person's hand was resonating with the phoenix dance sword in her hand. If you don't come out, it's my fault. The leader didn't even finish speaking when a white sword qi came again, directly cutting off the leader's neck, causing blood to spurt out. The remaining 16 people all sucked in a breath of cold air. If no one died, perhaps they could comfort themselves that they could win. But once someone died, the fear in their heart would be magnified, to the point that their feet began to tremble. Great hero, please spare us. One of the more timid assassins directly knelt down and said, we are only following orders. If we disturb Great Hero, we will immediately leave. Actually, when the second sword qi appeared, Luo Qingshun had already determined that person's position. It was a man, and his martial arts were very strong. Moreover, it was a bit familiar. Cuckoo. In the next second, an old voice sounded and the white-bearded old man from before walked out from the southeast. He held a green wind sword in his hand, and his steps were light, not like an old man at all. It's you? Luo Qingshun raised her eyebrows, and a faintly guang flashed in her eyes. She felt that the development of this matter was a bit strange. This old man was the one who passed by her on the stairs and gave her the information. Since he already gave her the information, he shouldn't have appeared. In other words, if he already knew that he was going to help her, why would he ward her beforehand? It was very contradictory. Moreover, there was no such person in the original owner's memories. Who was this person, and why did he want to save her? Before Luo Qingshun could understand, the assassins in front of her had already run away, leaving behind the leader who was already dead on the ground. Luo Qingshun's eyebrows slightly moved, and she turned to look at him. Why did your excellency save me? Do we know each other? There's a big age gap between me and the little girl. The old man paused and said, shouldn't you call me senior? Luo Qingshun slightly knit her brows and pursed her lips. Senior. She didn't know where she was being taken advantage of, but she didn't know where she was being taken advantage of. Looking at the old man's wrinkled face and white beard, it was natural for her to call him senior. But she still felt something. Luo Qingshun cleared her throat and said, did senior specially come to save me? I am the imperial advisor of Northern Liang. The old man stroked his beard and said, I am here on the orders of the king of Northern Liang to receive the divinator. Lung Qing Feng? Luo Qingshun slightly knit her brows and suddenly came to a realization. Oh, is that the Lung King's? How'd he know that someone would harm me? Chapter 3287. After saying this, Luo Qingshun thought of something. Before the old man replied, she already knew the reason. Lung Qingfeng had the ability to predict the future, so he knew that someone would come to assassinate her. Looking at your expression, it seems like you already know without me telling you. The old man chuckled. Lung Wang is worried that the divinator would encounter an accident on the way, so he sent me to protect you. But Luo Qingshun pursed her lips. She still had questions, but she didn't ask. Instead, she asked another question. So how should I address Senior? The other party froze for a moment before raising his eyebrows. Nameless. It's really strange. The old man's name is so strange. Luo Qingshun didn't say anything else and just said with a shrug, then will Senior Nameless be traveling with me? Logically speaking, that's right. Nameless said, but it's also possible that the journey will be peaceful and you won't need me. Then I'll borrow Senior's auspicious words. After they all left, Shaowen was also gone. Thinking about it, she wasn't an idiot. Now that she was exposed, it was the same as her being exposed. Furthermore, she was the one who personally prepared the poison pastries. It wasn't possible for her to shirk the responsibility. Luo Qingshun first checked on Rong Mo's trusted subordinates who were escorting her. Although they were drugged, their lives weren't in danger. She felt that it would be troublesome to bring them along. Thus, she left Longmin Inn at night and headed to Northern Liang with Senior Nameless. Although they didn't talk much along the way, they would still talk occasionally. For example, on this starry night, they watched the peaceful lake while roasting game. I heard that you country's king treats you very well. It seems like the rumors are true. Nameless coughed and said he actually sent his personal bodyguard to escort you to Northern Liang. Senior Nameless only sees the surface but not the inside. Luo Qingshun's mouth curved into a cold smile. Some people show their kindness on the surface, but in fact, they have a lot of things in their heart. Those things have long turned this so-called kindness into a way of using others. Wu Ming was slightly stunned, as if he didn't completely understand what Luo Qingshun meant. After a long time, he said, love in this world is the most unpredictable thing. From Senior's tone, you don't believe in love? Luo Qingshun's eyes glowed as she suddenly became interested. Thinking about it, he must have experienced a lot of untold stories in his life to become the imperial tutor of Northern Liang alone after living for such a long time. I've never believed in romance. After a long time, a faint light flashed in his eyes. He looked at the bright moon in the sky and said, so I want to prove that those things don't exist. What wind and flowers? What snow and moon? To put it bluntly, those were just the delusions of poets. To be more precise, it was the desire at the bottom of his heart that was causing trouble. So you've been proving it your whole life? Luo Qingshun flipped the branches in her hand and handed him the roasted pheasant. So the final conclusion is the same as what you imagined? Wu Ming was stunned. He took the pheasant from Luo Qingshun's hand and hesitated for a second before saying, maybe it's the same. He didn't know why he hesitated at this moment. Perhaps the pheasant in his hand was too fragrant, or a certain face under the moonlight was too beautiful. Chapter 3288. Luo Qingshun looked at his dull eyes and waved her hand in front of him. Senior, why are you in a daze? Nothing, he immediately explained. I'm just thinking about something. Even he himself didn't know why, but at this moment, he felt a sense of guilt in his heart. He hurriedly looked away and lowered his head to eat the drumstick. Senior, if you weren't as old as my grandfather, I would think you're in love. Luo Qingshun covered her mouth and laughed. Interesting, nonsense. John Doe suddenly showed a firm expression and said, little girl, what do you know about love? I've seen much more than you. Those who think they can stay together for a lifetime under the temptation of benefits will abandon one of them without hesitation. The next second, John Doe's expression changed, and he frowned tightly. He was still leisurely explaining his point of view, but suddenly he snorted. What happened? Probably because John Doe's expression was too terrifying, Luo Qingshun also became nervous. She took a deep breath and held her breath to sense the situation around her. Generally speaking, if one stopped talking halfway, other than feeling uncomfortable, the most likely reason was that there were enemies around. She thought that her insight was very strong, but after Qi observation for a long time, she still didn't feel any unknown person approaching. It's okay. After a while, John Doe shook his head and said, "It's just that this place is low-lying. I'm afraid it will rain tonight, and this place will be flooded. Let's go to another place to rest." Wow, Luo Qingshun exclaimed. Is the state preceptor of Northern Liang so powerful? Not only is he proficient in state affairs, but he also knows how to observe the stars. Anyway, let's hurry up and clean up. Let's go ahead and see if there's a higher terrain or a cave. As soon as he finished speaking, John Doe got up and walked forward. After taking 2 steps, he seemed to think of something and turned back to pick up the roasted pheasant on the shelf. Huh? Luo Qingshun revealed a faint smile and helplessly shook her head. Senior is still reluctant to part with a wild chicken. In the end, they decided to spend the night in a cave about 3 li away from the low-lying area. After all, this was the border of Yueyu, and there were very few inns. It's warmer in the cave. As Wu Ming spoke, his gaze fell on a spot not far away. Thank you for the pheasant, Mississippi. I'll catch some fish while it's raining later. Miss, you can hold the lamp for me here so that I can identify the direction. Luo Qingshun was stunned for a moment. Is it good to catch fish when it rains? He narrowed his eyes and smiled faintly. All right. Luo Qingshun didn't stop him. After all, this senior named Wu Ming's swordsmanship was quite high, and his martial arts were definitely not below him. What if he took fishing as a hobby? It wouldn't be good if she disturbed him. However, John Doe's trip this time was a little long. It was drizzling, and he stood behind a parasol tree with a black umbrella in his hand. In front of him were several assassins dressed in black. The leader was called Wang Xiao, and he was one of the best assassins in the Shadow Sect. Could it be that the scout's report was wrong? The little brother at the side frowned and said, "They're not here." No. Wang Xiao crouched down and sniffed the burnt wood shavings on the ground. They just left not long ago. Chapter 3289. Damn it. The lackey in black said, "They escaped. How are we going to explain this to General Ing?" Wang Xiao stood up and looked around. There aren't many places to rest and hide at the border of Yueyu. It's already so late, so they can't have gone far. Actually, this subordinate has heard about the incident at the Dragon Gate Inn. The black-clothed lackey continued. I heard that an extremely powerful person saved her at the Dragon Gate Inn. The assassins that Imperial concubine Yun sent out died on the spot, and the rest died one after another on the way out. No one knows who did it, but they all died in one strike. It must be an expert. Wang Xiao gave a laugh of disdain when he heard this. How can they compare to our Shadow Sect? Today, I will make it so that Luo Qingshun can't leave the border alive. Little did he know that in the next second, an extremely cold and arrogant voice came from the vast horizon. You didn't take the path to heaven, but chose to come to hell. Who? Who's speaking? Anyone who practiced martial arts could tell the level of the other party's martial arts from the other party's voice. Wang Xiao was very confident in himself. As an assassin, he was never afraid of anyone. Even if he couldn't face an expert stronger than him, he could still find an opportunity to kill him in one move. Everyone in the Shadow Sect knew that he was someone who would become stronger the stronger he was. He could be considered a character. At this moment, when he heard this cold voice, he felt an indescribable panic in the depths of his heart. This was because not only could he not tell the level of the other party's martial arts from the other party's voice, he couldn't even tell where the other party was. Brother Xiao, at this moment, the figure of a white knight brushing snow fell from the sky. He had long silver hair and wore a snow-white robe. His skin was as white as snow, and his eyebrows were sharp and unfathomable. His eyes were like deep pools in the night, and they were filled with a coldness that kept people 1,000 miles away. The right side of his face was covered by a green fox mask, and he held a green wind sword in his right hand. Under the moonlight, he gave off an even colder feeling. Wang Xiao took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. He frowned and said, "You don't know who I am? Is it important who you are?" The young man's tone was still very cold. His face was as cold as ice, without the slightest hint of emotion. Wang Xiao was a well-known figure in the Shadow Sect. Being mocked in such a contemptuous tone, he was naturally furious. But, for the first time, other than anger, he also felt fear. He had never felt this kind of fear before. But he couldn't retreat, because he had never retreated. "I'm afraid you still don't know. I am from the Shadow Sect. It's not important." With a shio sound, the young man lightly moved the green wind sword, forming a white light under the moonlight. In the next second, he smiled coldly and said, "Because after tonight, there will no longer be a person like you in this world." Wang Zhao's eyes widened. He pulled out his twin sabers from his waist and held his breath. He could clearly feel the heavy, killing intent all around him. At this moment, he could even feel the other party's martial arts. It was an extremely powerful sword aura. This kind of sword aura made it impossible for a shadow guard like him to hide. In an instant, Wang Xiao roared, "Let's fight." In the next second, the young man said, "It's too late." A streak of blood was cut by the moonlight, and the air was filled with the smell of blood. Going out even later, there's a small foreshadowing. Can anyone see it in a chapter? Chapter 3290. A fatal slash without any mercy. Fresh blood spread out under the moonlight. Wang Zhao's eyes widened. Before he died, he muttered to himself, "You are Lung. Lung, the #1 swordsman in the world, the king of the northern Liang country. Lung Qingfeng." No one had ever seen his appearance. Some said he was an old man over 50 years old. Some said he was a handsome and elegant young master. Other than a few high-ranking officials in the northern Liang country, no one else had ever seen his appearance. However, his sword skills were renowned. Even when they exchanged blows, he could not feel his opponent's attack. But before he died, he was very clear that there was no one else in the world who could kill him with a single slash other than Lung Qingfeng. Wang Xiao slowly closed his eyes and smiled helplessly in his heart. Imperial concubine Yun had truly underestimated this girl, called Luo Qingxian. She had just reached the border of Yueyu, and the king of the northern Liang country had personally come to escort her. Why was this so? This was the question that flashed through Wang Zhao's heart before he died. Unfortunately, he would never know the answer to this question. "Brother Xiao, Xiao. The black-clothed underling staggered back 2 steps and then turned around to escape. The remaining people also wanted to escape, but they were unable to dodge Lung Qingfeng's sky gauze sword chi. They all fell to the ground. As for the first black-clothed underling that escaped, he had purposely let them go. If he killed them all, the instigator would continue to send assassins. It was not that he was afraid of them, but he did not want to waste time on them. Since the heavens had foretold his destiny, he thought that he should spend all his time on his destiny. After all, that kind of feeling was not bad. After the enemies were all dead, Lung Qingfeng's right hand lightly waved the green wind sword. Water splashed into the sky, and a few living fish instantly floated to the surface. His long sword pierced through the air. His lips curled into a smile. He put on the perfect human skin mask and walked towards the cave, not far away. Luo Qingxian was already asleep. The peerless divine sword by her right hand would occasionally emit a dark red light, as if it was protecting its master. He looked at her sleeping face and slightly narrowed his eyes. He actually had a feeling that he could not shift his gaze away. Perhaps no one knew why he came here, but he knew better than anyone else. Since 7 days ago, he had been having a recurring nightmare. The appearance of the female lead would always appear in his nightmares. She was dressed in a plain white brocade, and when she looked back and smiled, he couldn't help but be dazzled. Just as he was about to see confirmation, Yu Country's King Rong Mo sent over a letter and a portrait. On the cover of the letter were the words "request for assistance." As for the portrait, the woman in the portrait was exactly the same as the woman he had been dreaming about for the past few days. He had the ability to foresee the future, but he didn't know why this woman had appeared this time. That night, he set up the 7 emotions array and observed the stars. A pink light appeared in the center of the array. Love, tribulations. The appearance of the woman in the dream coincided with the woman in the painting, indicating that this was the person he would fall in love with. But even after 100 years, his appearance had not changed, but he had never believed in romance, nor had there ever been anyone he loved. Was this a sign from the heavens, or was he too lonely? For the past few years, country had been invaded by Jade Country, and the country had been drifting in the wind and rain. As for the struggle between the two countries, he had never participated. It wasn't because he wanted to reap the benefits, but because he simply disdained to participate in their struggle. The request for assistance was written. Is it possible to use the Heaven's Fate Master to exchange for the help of Northern Liang Country? End of this chapter. Chapter 3291. If it was before, he would have just laughed it off. But now he was very curious. That woman called the Heaven's Fate Master. Just what kind of waves would she create in his life? He agreed to help the U Kingdom, but he never thought that the people of the U Kingdom would want to kill her. It seemed like her life in the U Kingdom wasn't good. He had heard a few years ago that the current king, Yu, was only able to ascend the throne because of the Heaven's Fate Master. But now he was using her to exchange for the safety of the country. He really couldn't agree with this. She was right. The king Yu seemed to be good to her on the surface, but that wasn't the case. He thought that he had thought it through, sending people to protect her, but he never thought that the people who wanted to harm her would find a way to harm her in the end. One had to dig up the roots to cut the grass. If it was him, he definitely wouldn't do this. Just like when he knew that she would be safe in the beginning, he only sent her a note to be safe. But the scene that flashed in his mind was when she was facing several assassins and her finger was accidentally cut. When this scene flashed in his mind, his heart was filled with dissatisfaction. Therefore, when he saw her walking alone in the sea of flowers, he decided to make a move for her first, to prevent her finger from being cut. Whenever this happened, he felt that his prediction skills were very useful. He could avoid all risks for her and not let her be hurt at all. Lung Qingfeng stood there for a long time. When the scene in his mind slowly disappeared, he touched his heart and looked away. It was like there was something in his heart that made him feel a bit panicked. Did he care? In this short period of time, he already couldn't control his heart. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 10%. Unfavorability? What was this situation? Was this a dream? It should be a dream. She was being assassinated every day in this world. She didn't even see the male lead's face, but she did see quite a few people. What affection! Her heart was filled with rage points, all right? When she was about to go back to sleep, there was a fragrant smell of fish that filled the air, and her stomach began to grumble. She slowly opened her eyes and saw that Lung Qingfeng had already set up a branch not far away, roasting fish. Senior Nameless will be here soon. Luo Qingchen yawned and said, "This cave is very strange. I don't feel cold when I sleep inside." Lung Qingfeng stroked his white beard and said, "Come and eat fish." In fact, she didn't feel cold because he sometimes put Yunwan's smoke at the entrance of the cave. It was an extremely rare piece of jade. As long as it was placed beside him, the surrounding cold air would dissipate. It was the token of the king of the Northern Liang Kingdom, so he did not show it to her directly. Senior really caught a lot of fish. Luo Qingchen exclaimed, "It's so fragrant. It's just a small toy." Lung Qingfeng's brows moved slightly. When we reach Northern Liang, there will be a lot of seafood delicacies. You can eat to your heart's content. I'm a hostage, okay? Luo Qingchen didn't forget to give a sigh while eating the fish. I don't know what kind of situation we'll face when we reach Northern Liang. I've heard that your king is very old. It can't be that he's thinking of taking a little girl as a concubine, right? Luo Qingchen naturally didn't believe that Lung Qingfeng was an old man. After all, she was the host, and this was a problem with her 3 views. She just wanted to use this chance to ask about Lung Qingfeng and see if this imperial tutor would give himself away. End of this chapter. Chapter 3292. Little did they know, cough, 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 Lung Qingfeng coughed with all his might and said with difficulty, "The fish bone is stuck. Io. Luo Qingshan hurriedly put down the grilled fish and walked forward to pat his back. "I say, Senior, you're already so old. Can't you be more careful when you eat? If you don't eat well, your clothes will be gone for the rest of your life." Lung Qingfeng calmed down and revealed a helpless expression. "You're so eloquent. You shouldn't be at a disadvantage in your country." "I'm not like this in your country." Luo Qingshan shrugged and said, "People will change. Once bound by the love of the scum man, it will be out of control. The original owner fell to the point of eternal damnation, just like this." Lung Qingfeng looked at her brows that suddenly turned cold and didn't know why he felt a bit of heartache. He also knew the strength of a Heaven's Fate Master. But looking at her appearance now, she should have already used the Heaven's Fate-changing technique. That's why her personal maid, Xiao Wan, poisoned her. After eating the fish, she volunteered to keep watch, but Lung Qingfeng didn't give her this opportunity. Little girls should respect the old and love the young. Lung Qingfeng raised his eyebrows and said, "Respect the old and don't go against his wishes." Luo Qingshan felt that this sentence was a bit strange, but she still responded in a daze. "Okay, then." This sleep was very peaceful, but at the same time, the Yu country's palace was not so peaceful. Pung! 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 Ing Yunfei angrily smashed the vase and porcelain on the table to the ground. The black-clothed subordinate kneeling below trembled and said, "Brother Xiao has already died. I'm afraid our shadow sect won't be able to take on this task." Ing Yunfei sneered and said, "You sent out so many people and still couldn't kill her. Are you all trash?" The moment her voice fell, she didn't forget to fiercely glare at Xiao Wan and continued, "You can't do anything right." Reporting to Yang, that Luo Qingshan really does have a very powerful person protecting her. This servant saw them die in an instant with my own eyes. They didn't even have the strength to fight back. Ing Yunfei took a deep breath and gripped the handle of the chair tightly. "Fine. Since someone wants to save her life, then let her live. In any case, she wouldn't be able to return to Yu country, nor would she be able to snatch Rong Mo from her. Rong Mo was hers and would always be hers." These words were accidentally overheard by Rong Mo's spy beside Ing Yunfei, and Rong Mo caught wind of it. "She really sent someone to kill her?" Rong Mo furrowed his brows. He had already felt that something was amiss when his personal guard returned early. Even though she had left a letter with her notes, he still felt that something was amiss. It turned out that she had indeed encountered danger. "Yes," that informant said, "and Xiaowan girl is also one of Consort Yunfei's people. It's my fault. It's my fault." Rong Mo furrowed his brows and said, "Help me pass some wine. I'm going to send him to Northern Liang and think of a way to bring her over." Her figure when she left that day would occasionally flash across his mind. In the end, he still loved her and couldn't let her go. Everyone had their own responsibilities. If Yu country was strong enough, he wouldn't have to sacrifice her. However, she didn't expect Ing Yunfei to go overboard. Not only did she force her, she even wanted to kill her. If he didn't protect her, wouldn't he be letting her down? Into this chapter. Chapter 3293. After a while, Xiejio walked in with his personal token, waiting for his orders. "Xiejio, you are my most trusted secret guard. Protect her in Northern Liang and bring her back when the time is right." Yes. Rong Mo didn't know if what he did was right or wrong, but she was still the person he loved the most. He couldn't bear to see her homeless in another country. But Luo Qingshan didn't seem to be homeless. Not only that, she was living a carefree life. The next morning, a merchant carriage passed by the border. She didn't know how much money Lung Qingfeng gave the other party, but she sat in the most luxurious carriage. Actually, it wasn't Lung Qingfeng who gave her the money. The truth was that he had people follow the carriage when they left Northern Liang in case of an emergency. Now, it really came in handy. Along the way, Luo Qingshan felt that she was being served very well. From time to time, there would be people bringing her fruits and dry food. "Miss, bear with it for 2 more days. When we reach Northern Liang, you will be able to eat hot food." The woman who spoke to her was called Lan Ji. She was very beautiful and had a cute aura. Luo Qingshun felt that this person wasn't bad. She could see a person's heart from their eyes. Lanji was a kind-hearted girl and gave people a feeling of being bathed in the spring breeze. Why was it said that one could see the difference in a person's eyes? Because when they arrived at northern Liang, they met an extremely unruly and willful young miss. You dirted this young miss's clothes. Since you don't have money to compensate this young miss, you have to use a hand to pay your debt. Bai Jiao Jiao raised her head with disdain in her eyes. She was the only daughter of the great general. She had been pampered since young, so she was very delicate. It was said that she was extremely strict with her servants. If they did something wrong, they would either have their hands or legs broken. It was as if there was a terrifying demon living in the depths of her heart. Luo Qingshun frowned slightly as she looked at the ant and the 6-year-old boy kneeling on the ground. Her eyes suddenly turned cold, and there was even a trace of killing intent. The boy was holding a candied hawthorn in his hand. It was probably because he accidentally touched the woman's clothes while walking that she wanted to use one of her hands to pay her debt. Miss Bai, I beg you to let my son go. Please chop off my hand, chop off my— Do you think our young lady wants your hand? The maidservant next to Bai Jiao Jiao said in a sharp voice, Even our miss thinks that your hands are dirty. The reason why she wants your son's hands is to tell you that if you do something wrong, you have to pay the price. You can't just say sorry and let it go. If you insist on paying for your son's crimes, I have a way. Bai Jiao Jiao's phoenix eyes trembled slightly. She flipped her fine black hair and said, Are you willing? As long as I can atone for my son's crimes, I'm willing to do anything. This was the most sincere plea from a mother's heart, but it didn't get the slightest bit of pity from Bai Jiao Jiao. I want both of your hands. What? Taking the blame for someone else is an incorrect thing to do. Big Brother Feng's world should be done according to the rules and not try to take advantage of the situation to avoid punishment. The woman said in tears, but if I don't have my hands, I won't be able to take care of my child. Would Miss Bai please be magnanimous and just cut off one of my hands? It seems that you're shrinking back. Bai Jiao Jiao sneered and said, Since that's the case, I won't make things difficult for you. Why aren't you cutting off this boy's hands? In fact, the Cold Prince is very two-faced in a chapter. Chapter 3294. Is this the golden age of Northern Liang by the state preceptor? Luo Qingshun sneered. It doesn't seem like much. Lung Qingfeng slightly narrowed his eyes, and a trace of light flashed through his eyes. Wasn't this Bai Jiao Jiao the woman that the general insisted on sending to the palace 2 days ago? Previously, he treated everyone equally and didn't allow any women from the previous dynasty to enter the palace. But this time, he accepted the Yu country's beauty. If there was none, no one would have dared to speak nonsense. But once the precedent was set, everyone would want to send their daughters to the palace. After all, who was Lung Qingfeng? In the eyes of the people of Northern Liang, he was a godlike existence. If they could send their daughters to the palace and become the Lung Prince's concubine, then they would have no worries and no fear. Because the general Bai Jing insisted that his daughter could also enter the palace this time, his daughter was the unreasonable Bai Jiao Jiao in front of them. Chop! In a flash, Luo Qingshun jumped and stood in front of the mother and son with the phoenix dance sword in her hand. She waved her right hand, and the sword cut Bai Jiao Jiao's delicate wrist. Blood instantly flowed out. Ah, she screamed, Who is it? You dare to assassinate this young miss? Do you not want to live anymore? Bai Jiao Jiao covered her wrist. Her eyes were incomparably sharp, as if she would be cut into pieces in the next second. It had to be said that for a young girl like her to have such eyes, she was indeed different from the other young misses. Whether I want to live or not, your words don't count. Luo Qingshun slightly nodded and said, Do you really think you are the law? Good. Your tone is not small. Bai Jiao Jiao bit her lips and roared, You have to know that if you cut this young miss's arm, you will have to pay with your life. Huh? Luo Qingshun lightly raised the phoenix dance sword. Her eyes flashed with indifference as she said, Since the result is the same, I don't want to cut your arm. I want to take your life. Bai Jiao Jiao's face turned cold. Apparently, she didn't expect Luo Qingshun to say such words. But at this moment, she had a strange feeling in her heart. It was an inexplicable fear, as if the sharp sword would really pierce her throat in the next second. "You dare!" Bai Jiao Jiao took a deep breath and roared. "Do you know who I am? I'm about to become the Lung Princess's concubine. Who do you think you are to threaten me?" "What? Ah." Luo Qingxun and Lung Qingfeng simultaneously revealed a look of disbelief. The former lightly snorted twice and said, "It seems that your monarch's vision is very poor." The latter then said, "Our emperor's judgment shouldn't be that bad. How did you know?" Luo Qingxun looked at the confused Lung Qingfeng and said, "State preceptor. You know Lung. Your Prince Lung so well. That's an absolute understanding." Lung Qingfeng said with certainty, "The king will not like this kind of woman. You can shut up. Who do you think you are to judge this young miss so casually?" Bai Jiao Jiao was naturally dissatisfied with being insulted by an old man. She glared at them and said, "You guys, take care of them for me." Everyone responded, "Yes, young miss." Although the servants holding the wooden sticks were a little afraid when they saw the phoenix dance sword, they had the advantage in numbers. Therefore, they never thought that they would lose. This book came from Chapter 3295. But sometimes, reality would tell them that some thoughts were better off not existing. For example, Luo Qingxun defeated everyone in a matter of seconds. Although the phoenix dance sword didn't draw blood, it was enough to destroy their momentum. Bai Jiao Jiao staggered back. Her face was extremely pale. Her lips trembled as she said, "I am the daughter of the great general." "You actually—" Before she could finish her sentence, Luo Qingxun's phoenix dance sword was placed on her neck. If the sword was a few centimeters deeper, it would have slit her throat. "Go back and tell your father, the great general, and that the cold prince who is about to marry you." Luo Qingxun narrowed her eyes, and a cold smile appeared on her face. "My name is Luo Qingxun. If you want revenge, then come. If I take a step back, then consider my loss." It was probably because she came to this plane with a belly full of anger. She already suffered so much in your country. Coming here, she was insulted by some great general's daughter. How could she not be angry? More importantly, why was he a great general? Was she related to the great general? "Okay." Bai Jiao Jiao's voice trembled as she stepped back. "Just you wait." Miss Bai, this old man has something to add." Lung Qingfeng suddenly spoke, causing Bai Jiao Jiao to stop. She already felt greatly humiliated. Adding on the fact that an old man stopped her, she felt even more unhappy. "Old man, what do you want to say? Can you say it quickly?" Bai Jiao Jiao bit her lip. Luo Qingxun, in front of her, was looking at her with her sword raised. She didn't dare not stop, so she could only keep begging. "What I mean is that the cold prince has good taste. He definitely won't fall for a vicious, unruly, and ugly woman like you. If he didn't wear this human skin mask, as the king of Northern Liang, Lung Qingfeng wouldn't say such words. It was precisely because he wore this human skin mask that he felt more real in many cases. Being cold and aloof didn't seem to suit him anymore. He thought that he was more suited to be black-bellied and overbearing. All the humiliation you've made me, Bai Jiao Jiao, suffer today. Wait until I enter the palace. I'll definitely return it all." Bai Jiao Jiao flicked her sleeves, turned around, and left. A few seconds later, the crowd began to applaud. The woman immediately knelt down with her son and said, "Thank you, Mississippi. Thank you so much." Who in Northern Liang City doesn't know that she's the daughter of Great General Bai Jiao Jiao? She's unruly and willful. Yes, I heard that a few days ago, the king of pork who was selling pork in Shijie accidentally dropped a piece of pork on the ground. After that, she directly asked for a leg of the king of pork. Sigh. Now that she's about to enter the palace and become the cold prince's concubine, I'm afraid she'll be even more domineering in the future. Everyone was originally very happy, but after talking to each other, their faces were filled with worry. After a while, they all dispersed. Luo Qingxun turned around and looked at Lung Qingfeng. "Senior, do you have any money on you?" All the copper coins she had were from the Yu country, so they didn't apply here. Lung Qingfeng seemed to be deep in thought because of the crowd's words. He only replied, after Luo Qingshun called him many times, yes. This book came from. Chapter 3296. She gave some copper coins to the mother and son and said, "This by Jiao Jiao is definitely not a good person. She suffered a loss at my hands today, so she definitely won't let this go. This kind of person's first thought will be to settle accounts with you. After all, she seems to like bullying people who can't even truss up a chicken. Then, what should we do?" Luo Qingchun thought about it and said, "If you don't have a place to stay in northern Liang City, you might as well go to the outskirts of the city to avoid trouble. We mother and son rely on each other for survival, selling some handmade goods for a living. I never thought that we would offend such a big person." Luo Qingshan gave a soft sigh and didn't say anything else. This was because this woman's words reminded her that there was no such thing as giving in this world. Once you've given once, you need to keep giving in the future. The previous host was like this, so she reached a point where she couldn't back down. Lung Qingfeng looked at her eyes, and it was like he could see a trace of Li Guang in her sparkling eyes. It was as if a star had lit up his night sky. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 20%. What was this situation? Why did she suddenly have affection? Was it because she was in northern Liang City, or because the male lead was nearby? That was impossible. But why was it 20%? Could it be that the male lead's affection for the previous host was 10%? Or perhaps it was because Lung Qingfeng had the ability to foresee things for a short period of time, so the foresight gave her favorability? While Luo Qingshun was in a daze, Lung Qingfeng, who was standing on the side, came forward and said, "Miss Luo, how about we go into the palace first before we talk?" Humph. Luo Qingshun crossed her arms and gave a proud snort. "Although I don't know how your Lung King gave me this, but he actually allowed by Jiao Jiao to do whatever she wanted in front of him. I don't have a good impression of him." First impressions were very important. If she had to give Lung Qingfeng a grade, his first impression of her would be a failure. He stroked his white beard and cleared his throat. The king spends most of his time studying 5 elements algebra, so he probably doesn't pay much attention to the affairs of the people. What you said makes sense. Luo Qingshun clapped her hands lightly and said, "He doesn't have time to care about the affairs of the people. Does the imperial preceptor not have time to care about the affairs of the people?" Sigh. "I have a bad impression of northern Liang." Miss Luo, please. Wang Jin, who was pretending to be a businessman but was actually an imperial bodyguard, habitually wanted to speak up for Lung Qingfeng. Little did he know that before he could finish speaking, he was sternly reprimanded. "Back down." "But you don't understand?" When Lung Qingfeng said these words, his eyes were ice cold. His eyes changed so fast that Luo Qingshun was caught off guard. Wang Jin hurriedly stepped back and said, "Sorry, I said too much." He had never seen Lung Qingfeng tolerate someone like this. It was almost to the point of spoiling someone. What was so special about this girl from Yu country? Not only did the Lung King personally receive her, but he also asked them to pretend to be businessmen. This kind of comprehensive plan was simply a painstaking effort. "It's fine. My tone was too harsh." Lung Qingfeng's lips curved into a faint smile. "Brother, don't mind it." The main thing was that he didn't know what was wrong with him. There was a strong desire to protect her. In any case, he couldn't let her be bullied. This book came from. Chapter 3297. Luo Qingshun was stunned for a long time. When she regained her senses, she looked at Lung Qingfeng's eyes and said, "You didn't look like a senior at all. Instead, he was like a high and mighty king with a noble demeanor, proudly looking down on the tens of thousands of miles of territory and the tens of thousands of people under his feet." The kind of gaze was somewhat unfamiliar, yet somewhat familiar. The unfamiliarity came from the fact that the seniors she knew would not have such a gaze. It came from the fact that some people had given her such a gaze before. Due to the time, they stayed at an inn outside the palace for the night and entered the palace the next morning. Luo Qingshan followed behind Lung Qingfeng. Everyone seemed to be afraid and respectful of this state preceptor. Everyone knelt down and bowed to him. When they reached the corner of the corridor, Luo Qingshan patted her chest and said, I just realized today that the state preceptor has such a high status in northern Liang. Of course. Lung Qingfeng raised his eyebrows and said, the state preceptor has always been above one person and below everyone else. To be more objective, he was indeed the king of northern Liang. However, he was also the state preceptor. However, most people did not know about his dual identities. Whatever the king could not do, the state preceptor could do it for him. Therefore, there were many rumors in the world. Some said that the king of northern Liang was an old man over 50 years old. Some said that he was handsome and had a godlike face. Great General Bai Jing knew what kind of face Wang Shangxing had. He seemed to have lived for a long time. His silver hair gave people a godlike feeling. The king of northern Liang was already 5 years old. When Bai Jing was only 5 years old, he was already the king. Today, he still had a youthful and picturesque face. Such a person must have abilities that ordinary people did not have. Therefore, he urgently wanted his daughter, Bai Jiaojiao, to marry into the palace. If he could find the art of immortality, he would not have to go through the vicissitudes of life. However, he did not expect his daughter to cry and make a fuss before entering the palace. She wanted to become the king's concubine and teach the people who bullied her a lesson. My precious daughter, you have to go step by step to enter the palace. Bai Jing said awkwardly. Prince Lung hasn't agreed to let you enter the palace yet. There's nothing I can do. I don't want to. I want to enter the palace. The next second, Bai Jiaojiao lifted her wrist and said, today, that person used a sword to hurt your daughter. She looked very arrogant and looked down on your daughter. Who is it? Who dares to bully my precious daughter? Daddy will avenge you. Although Bai Jing had no way to let his daughter enter the palace immediately, his power in the imperial court could be considered above tens of thousands of people. It was not difficult to deal with the people who bullied her daughter. It's easy to kill this kind of person. Bai Jiaojiao sniffed and said, but I just want her to be convinced. That woman named Luo Qingshun actually said that the cold prince had bad taste. There was even an old man who agreed that the cold prince didn't like her. She wanted her to see for herself how she became the Lung prince's favorite concubine. But Bai Jing frowned and said, the king is not in the palace now. Although we have submitted the memorial, we still have to wait for his approval. The next second, the steward hurriedly walked in and said, reporting to the great general, His Majesty has approved the great general's request to select a girl to enter the palace. This book came from Chapter 3298. Approved? Bai Jing was surprised. His serious expression instantly became excited. He turned to look at his daughter and said, Daughter, your chance has come. Prepare yourself, and you can enter the palace. Really? Bai Jiaojiao excitedly said, Father, that's great. Jiaojiao is really happy. After returning to her room, Bai Jiaojiao picked out a few beautiful clothes and wrapped them up. She planned to wear them when she entered the palace. Her personal maid Peony came in and said, Miss, your mood is good today. Of course. Bai Jiaojiao proudly raised her head and said, From now on, I'm the most honorable woman in northern Liang City. Yes. Mississippi Peony angrily nodded and said, Today this servant inquired about the woman and child on the road, but couldn't find them. They shouldn't be in northern Liang City. Slap. A loud slap landed on Peony's face, leaving a palm print. Bai Jiaojiao angrily said, Really a waste. Peony immediately kneeled and said, Miss, don't be angry, but this servant found out the background of that Luo Qingshun. Luo Qingshun. When someone mentioned this name, Bai Jiaojiao's eyes were filled with killing intent. Since she was a child, she could have whatever she wanted. If she wanted someone to die, then they would die. No one dared to disobey her, and no one had the qualifications to disobey her. In fact, Bai Jiaojiao might not know, but her heart had changed. Her murderous heart continued to blacken. Yes, Peony said, she is the woman sent by you country. She has already entered the palace. What? Bai Jiaojiao coldly snorted and said, No wonder she is so arrogant. She is also a woman who wants to enter the palace. However, it is too early for her to be arrogant. She really needs to be eliminated. Northern Liang Palace. vermilion and green tiles, golden and jade resplendent, surrounded by green pavilions, beautiful beyond compare. It seems that this Lung Wang also knows how to enjoy life. Miss Luo, rest well tonight in Snow Moon Palace. Tomorrow, all the harem girls will enter the palace to participate in the king's ceremony. The eunuch's voice was very loud. She didn't know why, but she always felt that it was particularly harsh. If Lung Qingfeng was in the market today, he should have seen by Jiao Jiao's unruly and willful appearance. Why did he finally agree to let the harem enter the palace? Sure enough, men were all pigs. On one side, he was continuously increasing her favorability towards him. On the other side, he was still hoping that he could have a harem of 3,000 beauties by his side. Scumbag. Miss, what did you say? The next second, Luo Qingshun hurriedly revealed a mischievous smile and said, It's nothing, I know. Thank you, Gong Gong. Lying on the bed, Luo Qingshun's heart was still very unhappy, but a certain emperor in the imperial study seemed to be very happy. It seems that the king is in a very good mood, Wang Jin said from the side. This humble one has never seen the king so happy before. Not bad. He glanced at Eunuch Du, who had just returned to report, and said, No matter what request Miss Luo has, I will agree to it. In addition, northern Liang City's climate is much colder than you countries. The red silk charcoal in her room is indispensable. Yes, you may leave. After Eunuch Du retreated, Wang Jin continued, But this humble one has something that I don't understand. You think that I have never allowed a woman to enter the palace before, but today I allowed it, right? Okay. Yes. Wang Jin's brows slightly moved. This humble one thought that the king doesn't like women. End of chapter. Chapter 3299. After a while, Lung Qingfeng looked at him, but he didn't say anything. Wang Jin felt that he had said something wrong, so he quickly kneeled down. This servant deserves death. Please forgive me, king. I didn't mean to blame you. Lung Qingfeng's deep and beautiful eyes sparkled as he said, I was just thinking about how to reply to you. King, now you've thought of it. Lung Qingfeng narrowed his eyes as a pampering look appeared in his eyes. His lips curled into a faint smile as he said, I didn't like girls before, and it's the same now, but, I like her. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 30%. In an instant, Luo Qingshun was woken up from her dream. She looked at the exquisite room in a daze. What was going on in this world? Why did the affection increase so strangely? She couldn't understand it at all. This Lung Qingfeng wouldn't be near her, right? Otherwise, how could the affection increase? It was already 30% without even seeing him. It can't be that the mission would be completed without even seeing him, right? Luo Qingshun was thinking this while feeling a bit warm, so she got up to pour a cup of water. Two maids wearing thick clothes came in and said, Does Miss Luo need something? This servant will go get it. The two little palace maids looked very delicate, but their faces were red, as if they were very cold. It's fine. I just want to pour a cup of water. Luo Qingshun raised her right hand and shook off the snow on them as she said, Is it very cold outside? That's right, miss. Xiaoyu slowly said, It's snowing heavily. Miss is wearing thin clothes. You shouldn't come out. But I don't feel cold in this room at all. Luo Qingshun looked around and said, I don't see anything that can keep me warm. Miss doesn't know this. Xiaoyu came forward and placed her hand on the red pillar. There are 8 pillars like this in the Snow Moon Palace, and they're all filled with red charcoal. Luo Qingshun came forward and softly touched the pillar. It really was hot. No wonder I don't feel cold at all. Luo Qingshun winked and said, Don't go out. Look at the snow on your bodies. It won't stop for a while. We don't dare. Xiaoyu and Xiaomi looked at each other and immediately knelt down. Eunuch Du ordered us to serve Miss outside. Young lady, you must be unfamiliar with this place since you've just arrived. If there's anything you need, just call us servants. Luo Qingshun shrugged and chuckled. You don't have to be so reserved, as if I'm really your master. Actually, I'm no different from all of you. She was a bargaining chip that Rong Mo used to exchange for benefits in your country. What kind of status would such a bargaining chip have in northern Liang City? According to the analysis of ordinary people, if they had a glib tongue, they might have a chance to live a peaceful life. But that was just an if. But now, it seemed that Lung Ching Feng valued her greatly. Not only did he give her such a warm and comfortable bedroom, he even sent a palace maid to serve her. Why was that? Miss must be joking. You're a high and mighty master. We're just palace maids. Xiao Yu bowed and said, this servant has been in Northern Liang Palace for so many years and has never seen the king take such good care of a young lady. The other palace maid, Xiaomi, immediately said, Xiao Yu, don't be rude in front of Miss. End of chapter. Chapter 3300. Although Xiaomi and Jewel had the same idea, Xiaomi entered the palace a few years earlier than Jewel. With a wider horizon, she was able to see things more clearly. The king indeed treated Luo Qingshun differently from the Yu Kingdom. However, the palace was constantly changing, and there would be many harem beauties entering the palace tomorrow. The harem that the king had set up for decades would definitely have a competition for beauty. Although they were palace maids, it was not easy for them to be promoted from low-class palace maids to first-class palace maids. No one could understand the bitterness they had gone through. Some palace maids even had to eat with eunuchs to get to where they were today. Thus, when there was no certainty in anything, they just had to do what they were supposed to do and be careful with their words and actions. This servant deserves to die. Please punish me. Mississippi. Jewel's eyes were red and her hands were trembling uncontrollably. Luo Qingshun lifted her up from the ground and said, no one is blaming you. I will talk to eunuch. You don't have to stand guard outside tonight. But Jewel lowered her eyes and said, there are many hidden guards that the king sent to protect Miss around the Snow Moon Palace. This servant wants to give them some hot water. Okay, Luo Qingshun agreed. If you can, it would be good to have some charcoal. Jewel thanks Miss on behalf of the guards outside. After drinking a large cup of hot water, Luo Qingshun did not feel sleepy. Jewel made tea for her, while Xiaomi went to change the heater for her. Actually, she was not cold at all. It was just that her thoughts were heavy. It was as if there was a huge mystery in her heart that she could not solve. Miss, you look better when you smile than when you frown. Jewel handed her the tea and said, is there something bothering you? Jewel. Xiaomi glared at her and said, you are too bold. Miss, this servant. Luo Qingshun saw that she was at a loss. She rested her chin on her left hand and said with a smile, it's okay. I have something bothering me. I can tell you. If Miss has something bothering you, please tell us. Xiaomi said carefully, this servant will share your worries. I heard that Prince Lung has never had a woman in his harem. Luo Qingshun tapped the table with the fingertips of her right hand and said with a lazy smile, is this rumor true? Could it be that he didn't like women? Could he be an abstinent ice king? Xiaomi glanced at Jewel. Just as Jewel was about to speak, Xiaomi interrupted. We servants don't dare to make wild guesses about these matters. Miss, you don't have to worry about it. The king is indeed very good to Mississippi. Jewel pouted, looking a little dejected. As palace maids, how could they not know whether there were women in the imperial harem? She did not understand why Xiaomi was always so careful and cautious. I understand. Luo Qingshun took a sip of the Biluakun tea and said, the tea you made is delicious. Let's call it a night. You should rest early too. As soon as her voice fell, Luo Qingshun gave a yawn before heading into the inner room. Xiaomi glanced at Jewel and shook her head angrily. Jewel retorted, why don't you let me say it? I think Miss Luo is a good person. Moreover, Prince Lung treats her well. Why can't I say it? You. Xiaomi sighed and said, you will know after tomorrow. There will be a harem in northern Liang City tomorrow. All the beauties are here to obtain the king's affection. However, not everyone is so lucky. If they are unlucky, no one can save them. In a chapter. Chapter 3301. Xiaomi's words were very deep and Jewel did not understand, but Luo Qingshun could faintly hear it. It seemed that even if there were no women in the harem, everyone was very careful, afraid that something would go wrong. If there was a so-called concubine, wouldn't it be even more terrifying? Luo Qingshun took a deep breath and slowly closed her eyes. It was a dreamless night, and she slept very well. When she woke up the next day, it was time for Eunuch Du to deliver the decree. He should have stood outside the palace for a long time, not daring to disturb Luo Qingqian's rest. Miss, Eunuch Du is here. Jewel blinked. He has been waiting for a long time. Luo Qingqian's eyes trembled. Why didn't he wake me up? Eunuch Du said, this is the king's decree. Jewel continued. If Miss is not awake, he cannot disturb Mrs. Dreams. Lung Qingfeng, Lung Qingfeng, what kind of man are you? Why are you so good to me when I have never seen you before? These were the words that came from the depths of Luo Qingqian's heart. She couldn't understand this man at all, but she kept accepting how good this man was to her and how much he pampered her. If it was only because she was a heaven's fate master, it would be too much to pamper her. Greetings to Miss Luo. Eunuch Du bowed. This servant is here to deliver the decree. Please go to the martial arts arena. Martial arts arena? Luo Qingqian frowned. Wasn't today the day the harem would enter the palace? Shouldn't they be going to the Hall of Supreme Harmony? Why did they have to go to the martial arts arena? Yes. Eunuch Du revealed a flattering smile. The king said that if Miss has any doubts, he will be able to solve them today. Luo Qingqian smiled. Do you think the Cold King can predict the future, or can he read people's minds? This servant thinks the king can do both. Luo Qingqian blinked, revealing a cute expression, and did not argue with Eunuch Du. Usually, at night, the king's favored eunuchs were best at flattering people. However, she didn't seem to like being flattered. It was fine as long as she knew how powerful she was. There was no need to tell others about it. She stood in front of the bronze mirror and dressed herself up. Although Xiaomi was a cautious palace maid, the hairpin she combed was really beautiful. Her long black hair was tied up in a bun with flowers, and a golden hairpin wrapped in pomegranate was inserted diagonally on the top of her head. Paired with the light pink peach blossom robe she was wearing, she looked especially cute and playful. Miss, you're so pretty. Jewel smiled sweetly. Super pretty, super pretty. I agree. Xiaomi blinked her eyes and revealed an unconcealable smile. She was beautiful, not the kind of beauty that came from a humble family, but the kind that could cause the downfall of a city. Eunuch Du, I'm ready. Luo Qingqian held up a moon-white oil paper umbrella and said, let's go. The martial arts field was a place where soldiers often came to practice martial arts. It was a place where men could practice martial arts and women could not enter. When Luo Qingqian arrived, the martial arts field was already surrounded by over 100 harem girls. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple, each person was wearing different clothes. They were fat and thin, each with their own merits. It had to be said that this scene really gave people the feeling of 100 flowers competing to be beautiful. And this beauty was not a woman, but the king of this country. Announced the imperial edict. Eunuch Du stood on the stage and cleared his throat. This is the first time the king has accepted a harem since he ascended the throne 70 years ago. Whoever obtains the final victory will have the opportunity to enter the palace. La la la. Good night, my big babies. La la la. In a chapter. Chapter 3302. Luo Qingqian raised her eyebrows and looked around. Sure enough, there were many people around, but the culprit was not present. Miss, this way, please. Eunuch Du was very respectful towards her. Although the cold prince was unpredictable, he had been by his side for a long time and knew a little about his temper. This Luo Qingqian must be extraordinary in the cold prince's heart. Eunuch Du guessed that she would have a meteoric rise in the future. Therefore, it was absolutely necessary to show her respect now. Luo Qingqian nodded and walked in the direction Eunuch Du pointed out. The person sitting opposite her was Bai Jiao, whom she had met at the market yesterday. Her charming face instantly turned fierce when she looked at Luo Qingqian, as her eyes filled with an ice-cold gaze. Luo Qingqian pretended to look indifferent. She would smile from time to time and drink the fragrant by Luo Qingqian from time to time, looking quite relaxed. Bai Jiao turned and looked at Bai Jing angrily. Father, it's her. She's the one who humiliated me that day. I see. Bai Jing's eyes darkened. Jiao, don't worry. She's father's treasure. She's so outstanding. Once she becomes the king's concubine, we'll be able to deal with her openly. You're right, father. Bai Jiao raised her eyes and smiled confidently. She's good at zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, singing, and dancing. How can she be better than me? She'll embarrass herself. In fact, Bai Jiao wasn't the only one who thought so. Hundreds of officials and wealthy ladies thought that the cold prince of northern Liang wanted a woman who was the best at zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. However, when eunuch Du announced the rules of the concubine selection, everyone was stunned. In the martial arts competition on the arena, the woman who wins in the end will be able to obtain the token left behind by the current king and can directly enter the palace today. Most of the women present had graceful figures, but they were delicate. Northern Liang had been peaceful for a long time. There was no need for women to play with swords. Lung Qingfeng's method of leaving a card made everyone present fall into a state of anxiety. Bai Jiao was also very anxious, but fortunately, she felt that she was slightly better than those ugly girls who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. However, she didn't know how she could win against Luo Qingchen. After all, she had experienced her martial arts yesterday. Although she was extremely unwilling to admit it, it was indeed above her. What to do? What should he do? Jiao, take this. Just as she was deep in thought, Bai Jing handed her a small bag of powder and said, "This is ancient soul incense. It contains a strong poison. Put it in your sleeve. If you meet someone difficult to deal with, use it on them." Is this the ancient soul incense that King Yu gave to father when he was on good terms with him? Yes. Bai Jing narrowed his eyes. So don't be afraid. They're no match for you. He had been an official in the imperial court for so many years. Although he did not fully understand the temperament of the current cold prince, he found it strange that the consort was not at the Hall of Supreme Harmony or the Jade Water Pavilion. Instead, she came to the martial arts arena where the soldiers were trained. If it was not a literary selection, then it was very likely that it was a martial arts competition. Although his own daughter knew some martial arts, she did not practice it often. At most, it could only be considered a third-rate martial arts skill. It might not be a problem to deal with the daughters of ordinary ministers, but to deal with a woman who knew martial arts, she would be at a disadvantage. Chapter 33:03. However, the person who used the ancient soul incense would die within 7 to 14 days. Even the imperial physicians wouldn't know the cause. I know, father. Bai Jiao carefully put the ancient soul incense in her sleeve and said, I won't use it casually. I will only use it on key people. Bai Jiao's so-called key person was Luo Qingchen. After all, there was a grudge between them. In her opinion, the old grudge and the new grudge should be settled together. In the first half of the incense sticks time, the beauties were taking turns to count cards. Some of them who didn't know martial arts at all finally chose to give up after an endless struggle in their hearts. After all, swords have no eyes. Even if they couldn't become the most noble woman in the world, at least they wouldn't have to worry about their lives. But if they were to perform on stage and accidentally cut their faces, wouldn't their lives be ruined? Moreover, they didn't know martial arts. Losing was already an inevitable result. Therefore, there was no need to give it a try. Although they would turn back to look at each other 3 times with every step they took when they followed their father or brother out of the training field, they didn't have much choice. In the end, they left behind more or less some foundation in martial arts. Or maybe they really wanted to become Lung Qingfeng's concubines. Therefore, even if they knew they would lose, they still wanted to give it a try. For what? Reputation, status, power, or love? She was still waiting for Luo Qingchen to understand why so many people came here. The 2 people in the center of the martial arts arena had already started. Reasonably speaking, this was the most unexciting fight Luo Qingchen had ever seen. Not only was it unexciting, it was also particularly funny, especially the 2 people who didn't know martial arts. After going on stage, they were particularly restrained. After all, they were both women from large families. Usually, they didn't dare to make big movements, let alone fighting on stage. But every time Eunuch Du shouted, there is still a quarter of an hour. If the 2 girls still haven't decided the winner, they will both lose. At this moment, The two girls who were still embarrassed rushed forward and grabbed each other's hair. For some reason, women always like to grab their hair. Luo Qingshun looked at this scene and couldn't help but chuckle. The originally nervous people in the audience were also happy. Some even shouted, come on, hit her, grab her hair, grab her hair. This scene wasn't a palace selection at all. Instead, it was more like a fight among the common people. Lung Qingfeng, what do you want to do? Fine. Eunuch Du's voice suddenly sounded. Both of them were sweating profusely, and their clothes were soaked in sweat. In the end, the yellow-clothed woman won by a slight margin. However, looking at her appearance, it seemed that she would not be able to compete in the second round. Her hair was messy hair, and her face was pale. After she left the stage, her brother, the Grand Secretary of the Imperial Palace, patted her head and said, Ning, let's not compete, okay? I can't bear to see you like this. I can't. Xuanning sniffed and said, You know that I've admired the Cold King since I was young. I've studied every one of his poems carefully. He likes the stars, so observing the sky has become my favorite hobby. Xuanning said stubbornly, Brother, I've been waiting for this opportunity for too long. The Cold King is finally going to be selected. No matter what the reason is, no matter who he is doing this for, I think this is our only chance. Chapter 33:04. And this sentence happened to be heard by Luo Qingshun. Her originally relaxed heart suddenly became a lot heavier. It seems that in addition to money and power, there are also people who came for admiration. The seemingly funny fight on the stage was actually some people using all their strength just to see Lung Qingfeng. Cough, cough. Suddenly a familiar light cough sounded. Luo Qingshun was slightly stunned and turned around to see the figure of the nameless senior. Yo, isn't this the state preceptor? Luo Qingshun blinked and said, You also came to watch the show? I'm just looking. Lung Qingfeng stroked his white beard. Seeing Eunuch Du's expression change and wanted to salute him, he immediately gave him a sharp look. What are you looking at? Luo Qingshun shrugged and said, Senior is already so old. Could be that you still can't forget romance. Probably because the two have been together for a long time. Luo Qingshun felt that although the other party was very old, they could be considered as friends despite the difference in age. When they talked, it was very relaxed, and there was no sense of estrangement. She thought that he would at least defend himself, but she didn't expect that he didn't want to defend himself at all and directly admitted, That's reasonable. Could it be that romance is popular now? Next, let's invite Miss by Jiao to fight Miss Xuanning. Eunuch Du's voice sounded again. Luo Qingshun's gaze returned to the martial arts arena. In the last round, Bai Jiao won because the opponent was the daughter of the general and deputy general, so she chose to forfeit. May I ask Eunuch Du, since it's a martial arts arena, why can't I use weapons like a man? Bai Jiao wanted her long whip. Usually, she used it to teach the servants, so it would be very convenient to use. The king's verbal order is not to use weapons. Eunuch Du raised his eyebrows and said, Does Miss Bai want to defy the edict? Eunuch Du is joking. Bai Jiao was a little angry, but she still said with a smile on her face, Jiao doesn't dare. On the surface, she was smiling, but in her heart, she cursed fiercely. You're nothing but a rootless thing. How dare you be so arrogant? When the dust settles, I'll have plenty of time to deal with you. Bai Jiao put a finger ring on the ring finger of her right hand and said, Then let's start. The finger glove seemed transparent and harmless, but it was actually extremely sharp, comparable to a long sword. It was normal for women to wear finger gloves, so no one paid much attention to it. Xuanning naturally knew that this woman called by Jiao was not easy to deal with, but she had perseverance. If she put in the effort, she still had a chance to win. But the truth was, she didn't have a chance. Bai Jiao's martial arts were definitely above Xuanning's. After a few rounds, Xuanning was out of breath. Luo Qingshun originally thought that this competition would end with Bai Jiao's complete victory. Little did she know that the result she wanted was never as simple as a simple victory. When Xuanning used all her strength to pounce on her for the last time, The glove on her ring finger scratched her face. Ah, ah. Two screams sounded at the same time. Bai Jiao first showed a frightened expression and said, "What are you doing? Isn't it already over? Why are you still pouncing on me?" At this time, Xuanning's whole face was covered in blood, dripping down drop by drop. She painfully covered her face with her eyes wide open, tears welling up in her eyes. This chapter ends. Chapter 33:05. Xuanning's brother rushed forward and hugged her. "What are you doing? My sister can't beat you at all. Why did you hurt her?" "I didn't." Bai Jiao's face turned pale. "She was the one who threw herself at me. Why are you blaming me? What did I do wrong?" This was a big show. Xuanning's face was really ruined. Moreover, Bai Jiao's attack was very heavy. When she cut Xuanning's cheek, she used all her strength. Who told her to have such a pretty face? She just couldn't stand it. In order to avoid future troubles, it was better for such a pretty face to not exist in this world. If it's ruined, then it's ruined to avoid future troubles. But no weapons were allowed in the martial arts field. In order to not become a topic of ridicule, she pretended to be wrong to show that she was innocent. "You?" Shui Rang pointed at Bai Jiao's ring finger. "What are you carrying on your hand? How could you hurt my sister like this?" He was below the stage, watching his sister's ruined face with his own eyes. Her face was covered in blood, and his heart was filled with pity. This woman clearly did it on purpose. Her goal was to ruin Xuanning's face. "How can you slander someone like that?" Bai Jing stood up. "Jiao was very careful when she was fighting with your sister. Your sister kept attacking while Jiao kept dodging. In the end, it was your sister who rushed forward. How can you say our Jiao is wrong?" "You." Shui Rang was speechless. Although it was like that on the surface, he knew it wasn't like that at all. That woman called by Jiao could have easily defeated his sister, but she fought like she was toying with her. In the end, "Brother, don't say any more." Xuanning covered her face and burrowed into his arms. "Let's go back. What's the point of arguing now?" Her journey of adoration was over. She didn't even have the courage to stand in front of that man. What qualifications did she have to talk about love? "Ning, let's go back." Shui Rang took a deep breath and carried Xuan Ning off the stage. Below the stage, Luo Qingshun looked calm on the surface, but her right hand clenched the teacup tightly, and her whole body exuded a cold aura. Although Lung Qingfeng's expression was somewhat solemn, his heart was as calm as water. He was a cold person to begin with. He only cared about what he cared about. In the next second, what would happen next appeared in his mind. Bai Jiao used a strange powder to defeat Luo Qingshun. This powder was probably ancient soul incense. It seemed like the great general and the Yu country's monarch, Rong Mo, had some secret dealings. "Girl." He glanced sideways at Luo Qingshun and said, "Don't compete with her. Apply for a truce." At this stage, everyone had the opportunity to call a truce and choose to skip their current opponent. Luo Qingshun was very clear that according to the current order, her next opponent was Bai Jiao. But why did he ask her to skip it? Although she didn't know Xuan Ning, Bai Jiao's actions just now made her want to uphold justice. "That's right, uphold justice, why?" Luo Qingshun frowned, her eyebrows trembling. "I don't. Be good and listen to me. I don't want to." Luo Qingshun looked away. "I don't know why you don't want me to go. Or is it because your master is afraid that I'll hurt her? In short, I don't want her to enter the palace." This book came from Chapter 33:06. She felt that she was angry, and in fact, she was indeed angry. Bai Jiao's ruthlessness had already surpassed her impression of an evil person. She wasn't just an evil person. Her heart had already reached a point of darkness. It was as if the entire world was her servant, and she could trample everyone under her feet. Lung Qingfeng was a bit surprised, and he revealed a helpless smile. He didn't want her to go on stage because he knew that Bai Jiao had hidden the ancient soul incense in her sleeve. According to the development of the situation, she should have succeeded in sprinkling the ancient soul incense into her eyes. She was in the open, and Bai Jiao was in the dark. She was indeed caught off guard. But he didn't want her to be hurt, so he wanted to personally deal with Bai Jiao. but seeing her angry and proud appearance. At this moment, he actually wanted to go along with her. What did it matter? Since she was angry, he would let her personally deal with it. With him by her side, no matter what happened, he wouldn't let her be hurt in the slightest. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 40%. After that, Luo Qingshun angrily put her hands on her waist and said, "What increase? It's a good thing it's full and the mission is over." This was the first time in her life that she felt so helpless, anxious, and defeated. It was as if she did not contribute or participate in this love affair. In short, it was Lung Qingfeng who single-handedly shot her arrows of love with xiao xiao xiao. But she didn't even have a direction to respond. Lung Qingfeng was a bit surprised as he looked at her and said, "What's wrong?" "I'm fine." Luo Qingxin's cold eyes narrowed as she looked at Bai Jiaojiao on stage. Her thin lips softly said, "Seniors, if the king is unwilling, then say it now. I won't show any mercy later." Lung Qingfeng didn't have time to explain before Luo Qingxun jumped onto the stage. The competition had reached this point, and there weren't many people left in the arena. She didn't bring her phoenix dance sword, but probably because of the resentment in her heart, the exquisite ring on her right hand's ring finger was faintly glowing under her sleeve. Bai Jiaojiao narrowed her eyes and bit her lip. "Oh, we're finally here." Luo Qingxun sneered and said directly, "Aren't you tired of talking so much?" Bai Jiaojiao obviously couldn't stand this anger. She clenched her fist and said, "Don't be arrogant. You'll see later." Based on that, in a split second, Luo Qingxun didn't wait for eunuch Du to finish his words. She had already rushed towards Bai Jiaojiao at an extremely fast speed. It was probably because her speed was too fast that everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air. "Uh-huh." Bai Jiaojiao let out a muffled groan. Even if she exhausted all of her skills, there was no way to resist Luo Qingxun's attack. In less than 10 seconds, he was already rolling on the ground, unable to stand up at all. "Damn it!" Bai Jiaojiao roared in her heart. She had been rolling and crawling on the ground to avoid Luo Qingxun's attacks. She had no way to throw the ancient soul incense at her. She could only clench her teeth and wait for her to reveal a flaw. After a series of sighs, a few whispers began to whisper to each other. Who is this girl? Her martial arts are actually so powerful. More than powerful. Based on my many years of experience in Jianghu, her martial arts can definitely be called an expert. It seems that the great general's daughter is going to lose this round. Chapter 3307. Luo Qingxun could actually end the fight with Bai Jiaojiao in one move. After all, she had experienced a lot and had a better understanding of the human body. If she could completely suppress her opponent in the shortest amount of time, she would have reached the point of perfection. Choke was the most direct and perfect method, but she didn't do it because she wanted Bai Jiaojiao to feel what torture was. This was what she did to Xuan Ning on the stage. Although she couldn't ruin her face in front of everyone, but humiliating her in front of so many people still made her feel good. Luo Qingxun," she roared, "don't go too far." Bai Jiaojiao gasped for breath. Her face was incomparably pale. She tightly gripped her sleeves as she thought about how to sprinkle the ancient soul incense on Luo Qingxun. But she didn't have a chance. She was completely beaten to the ground by Luo Qingxun, not having a single chance. But in the next second, even Luo Qingxun didn't know that she had given Bai Jiaojiao an opportunity, because a certain guy who never showed up gave her affection again. It made her heart tremble and her mind restless. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 50%. While she was in a daze, Bai Jiaojiao rolled over and sprinkled the ancient soul incense on her while she was in a daze. Luo Qingxun narrowed her eyes and slightly knit her brows. Just when she thought she was going to be hit, a familiar yet strange voice appeared in front of her. His silver hair was like silk, and he was wearing a silver fox mask. His aura was incomparably strong. His white sleeves fluttered, and the ancient soul incense floated in the opposite direction. He withdrew his deep pool, and there was a coldness that kept people 1,000 miles away. This subject greets the cold prince. Everyone took a cold breath and instantly knelt down to pay their respects. But in the next second, Bai Jiao covered her eyes and let out a scream. Ah, my eyes, my eyes. General Bai Jing rushed onto the stage and hugged her. Jiao, how are you? Don't scare father. My eyes hurt. So painful, so painful. Lung Qingfeng narrowed his eyes, and the sinister look in his eyes almost froze everyone. Luo Qingshun only had her back facing him, but she could feel the coldness from his body. However, this chill was both foreign and familiar at the same time. This subject greets the king. Bai Jing narrowed his eyes and planned to complain. This girl called Luo Qingshun hid poison and wanted to harm this subject's daughter. For some reason, Bai Jing felt that the more he spoke, the more exhausted he felt. The one who was standing in front of him was no other than the King of Kings. The unfathomable to king who was unpredictable and cold. Great general. In the next second, a deep voice that was as cold as water slowly sounded. Could it be that you've become muddle-headed from old age, or that you've misunderstood my abilities? His abilities, prediction, future. Of king of B of B's. Of luf the of his of time. Lung Qingfeng was a god, a tall and mysterious god. This subject, cold sweat dripped down from Bai Jing's face. He finally knew why he was panicking. Because he couldn't deceive Lung Qingfeng. All his lies were as transparent as if he was wearing the emperor's new clothes. Chapter 33:08. Go back to the general's manor and reflect on your actions. Lung Qingfeng's cold eyes narrowed. This is only the beginning. Luo Qingshun was stunned from beginning to end. She didn't know why Lung Qingfeng would appear in such a perfect situation. Or was he here from beginning to end, and she just didn't notice him? Bai Jing swallowed his saliva and immediately bowed in a trembling voice. This servant knows his mistake. This servant will leave now. Lung Qingfeng didn't directly deal with Bai Jiao, since the ancient soul incense wasn't an ordinary poison. The poisoned person would die in a short period of time, and the antidote was very hard to find. Moreover, even if the antidote was taken, the poisoned person wouldn't be the same as before. Her appearance and voice would change. He couldn't tell what the change would be. The only thing he knew at this moment was that this scene of a hero saving a beauty should have moved the little girl, because he could feel a burning gaze on his back, a gaze that belonged to her. Today's concubine selection will end here. Lung Qingfeng narrowed his eyes and said, I think I found the Northern Liang's queen. See, at this moment, everyone present was shocked once again. Even Luo Qingshun, standing behind him, revealed a look of disbelief. What is this situation? Who am I? Where am I? What happened? From a moment Bai Jiao attacked her, to Lung Qingfeng standing in front of her to protect her, to now announcing the Northern Liang's queen. This entire process happened too fast, so fast that she was caught off guard. Isn't this a bit too exciting? After that, Lung Qingfeng turned around and his slender finger gently tapped on her forehead as he said, Miss Luo Qingshun, are you ready? Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 60%. In the past, he wore a mask to not let anyone see his appearance or demeanor. As long as the other side didn't see his face, they would feel a sense of fear. But at this moment, the feeling of wearing a mask was no longer the same. He had to admit that he was very nervous. When she decided to personally take care of Bai Jiao, he had already thought of appearing to save her. Her goal was to announce that she was her queen in front of everyone. Instantly, Luo Qingshun blinked her clear eyes. She smiled and said, Cold Prince, seeing you in person is better than hearing about you 100 times. The Grand Tutor, just now. Where did it go? When Luo Qingshun turned around, she found that the state preceptor was no longer sitting in her seat. She didn't know where she had gone. At this moment, her mind was a little muddled, and she felt that something was wrong. But before she could figure it out, Lung Qingfeng opened his mouth again. From today onwards, Luo Qingshun is the queen of the Northern Liang Kingdom. The coronation ceremony will officially begin in 3 days. What martial arts arena competition? What harem selection? All of it was for this moment, that he could completely destroy all of the fantasies that they had about her. Before such a love tribulation appeared, Lung Qingfeng had always thought that he had no feelings for romance. He even felt that he could be alone for the rest of his life. After all, he had never experienced the feeling of being moved. But now, it seemed like he had fallen. It was a bit beyond redemption. He had lived for 100 years, and other than his hair turning from black to silver, he hadn't changed at all. Perhaps this was the grace that the heavens had given him, but at the same time, it had given him 100 years of loneliness. But now, it seemed like he wasn't lonely anymore. Chapter 3309. Luo Qingxun blinked at Lung Qingfeng and then blinked again. Her mind was completely blank. It was as if he had said everything and done everything. She was just a person who reaped the fruits of others. There was nothing for her to worry about, because long before anything bad happened, that man with the ability to predict the future would settle the problem in front of her. Weiyang Palace. Lung Qingfeng's bedroom. Although the ladies who came to grab each other's hair were not very happy, but if they could not obtain Lung Qingfeng's favor, it was meaningless no matter how angry they were. Originally, there were a few top-ranked ladies waiting in the martial arts arena for Eunuch Du to announce the king's decree. They always thought that since it was an election for the harem, they would not only let one person enter the palace. They would more or less choose the top few, or the most outstanding ones. But the truth was, other than announcing Luo Qingxun as the queen of Northern Liang, Lung Qingfeng did not bring any other women into the palace. This was his original plan. He only wanted to use a method that the girl could not refuse and make her his queen. Weiyang Palace was not as warm as her Snow Moon Palace. Perhaps it was because Lung Qingfeng's cold aura was too strong that it changed the atmosphere here. They sat opposite each other, drinking tea while playing chess. Luo Qingxun's chess skills were not very good. When she felt that she was at a disadvantage, she wanted to say something to break the ambiguous silence. Why did the king want to make me queen? Is it only because I am a divinator? Lung Qingfeng was slightly stunned. The black piece was actually off by a square. Luo Qingxun's eyes lit up. She suddenly felt that this chess piece could still be saved. Didn't you lose your divinator abilities long ago? Lung Qingfeng's lips curved into a faint smile. A pair of rare dark eyes flashed with a dazzling light. What do you think it has to do with anything? He wanted her to come and protect her from the border. Now that she was about to become his queen, he did not understand why at first. But now he knew. He did it for her, and only for her. However, why would Prince Lung agree to Rongmo's Prince Yu's seemingly unfair deal if I'm not a divinator? Using her to exchange for 30,000 elite soldiers was indeed a great thing for Rong Mo. But to Lung Qingfeng, it was a huge loss. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 70%. The system's notification rang out in her mind, causing her to be nervous and make the same mistake as Lung Qingfeng. The white piece was seeking its own death, directly causing the chess piece that could have been resurrected to die. Luo Qingxun stood up in exasperation and said, "How can you be so shameless? What is going on in your head every day?" He had really never experienced a plane where all the favorable impression points came from so inexplicably. He seemed to be seriously thinking about the game, but in fact he was completely unsettled. This kind of game where the white pieces could not be resurrected, he actually couldn't find a way to break through it. After stuttering for a while, a pair of dark eyes suddenly looked up and said, "Yes." In that instant, the black pieces fell onto the chessboard and surrounded all the white pieces, firmly trapping them. Chapter 3310. Luo Qingxun's eyes trembled. Although the chess piece was cold, it could not cool her hot palm. Why did she feel that Lung Qingfeng was so familiar? They had only met for the first time, but she had the illusion that they had known each other for a long time. The king's chess skills are so good, but he still wants to play chess with me. Luo Qingxun paused and said, "Isn't this bullying? Qingxun will also be bullied?" Lung Qingfeng smiled and said, "It doesn't seem like it." There was a hint of playfulness in his tone. Under the green fox mask, There was a comfortable smile. So the king means that you have already seen me? Luo Qingshun pursed her lips and said, when did we meet? When the coronation ceremony is over, I will tell you. He raised his right hand and gently touched her forehead, saying, rest early. There are still many things to do tomorrow. All right. Luo Qingshun did not immediately get an answer. She was a bit disappointed. Plus, she was not happy at all about being killed on the chessboard. She straightened her clothes and stood up, saying, Qingshun will leave now. I didn't let you leave. The next second, Lung Qingfeng grabbed her sleeve and said, you should rest in the inner room. I have to deal with some matters of the coronation ceremony tonight. I'm afraid I won't have time to rest. Me? Luo Qingshun was startled. She felt that things were developing too quickly. Her cheeks were slightly hot, and her ears were slightly red behind her fine black hair. Is this okay? Luo Qingshun blinked and said, won't it attract criticism? What do you think? Lung Qingfeng chuckled and said, I am the king of the northern Liang kingdom. You are the queen. What kind of criticism can it attract? What you said seems to make a bit of sense. Luo Qingshun pulled her hair behind her ear and said, then I won't hinder the king from dealing with the affairs of the kingdom. He heard her words, but he did not intend to let go. His grip on her sleeve tightened. After a long while, he slowly loosened his grip and said, don't kick the quilt. Don't catch a cold. When they were in the cave, her sleeping posture was not good. He was a little worried when Yuan put the cigarette beside her. Now that he reminded her, it was because he was concerned about her. Yeah, how did he know that she would kick the blanket? This was probably not her habit, but the habit of the original owner. When sleeping, many little habits would unconsciously reveal themselves, but they had never interacted before, so how would he know? Luo Qingshun had deep doubts in her heart, but she knew that even if she asked, Lung Qingfeng would not give her an answer. She might as well lie down alone and think carefully about whether there were any details that she had not thought of. Or did she miss out on some important information? She thought that she would think about it carefully, but she fell asleep not long after lying on the bed. It was warm around him, but it was not the kind of warmth that came from burning red coal. It was a familiar kind of warmth. Why was it so familiar? She couldn't quite put her finger on it. This night was a peaceful and warm night for her, but for Bai Jiao, it was the exact opposite. General's mansion. Bang, 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 bang. The sound of porcelain falling to the ground slowly came. Bai Jiao's eyes were covered with a thick white gauze. She shouted hoarsely, take it away, take it away, take it all away from me. The stinging pain from her eyes made her extremely anxious. She was fully prepared. Why did it turn out like this? Why did the current King Lung save her? What was the reason? This book came from. Chapter 33:11. Jiao, calm down. Gu Jing's originally dignified face became extremely old at this moment. Even a few more strands of white hair appeared. How can I calm down? Bai Jiao burst into tears and fell to the ground. That woman is now living in Weiyang Palace. That's where I, Bai Jiao, should go. Why did I become a hostage in exchange for something else? Bai Jiao naturally knew Luo Qingshun's identity. She was just a woman that Rong Mo didn't want. How could she be treated so well by Lung Wang? Young miss, you mustn't get angry. The doctor said, although the antidote for the ancient soul incense powder has been applied to your eyes, it is still highly toxic. You must take care of it, otherwise what? Bai Jiao was startled. She followed the direction of the voice and grabbed the doctor's shoulder. Explain it to me. Jiao. Bai Jing squatted down and gently patted his daughter's head. Father also doesn't want you to suffer any grievances. Father also wants to avenge you, but we can't do it now. The person standing in front of Luo Qingshun was none other than the greatest king of the northern Liang kingdom. He was mysterious and powerful. When his grandfather was an official, he was already the king of the northern Liang kingdom. This kind of king no one can deal with. Yes, I must calm down. Bai Jiao closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Luo Qingshun must have used some kind of charm technique to confuse the king. Father, didn't you say it before? She is actually a divinator. Yes. Bai Jing lowered his voice and said, "The divinator of the ancient forbidden sect is a godlike existence among the common people. She is not easy to deal with. Now that the king is protecting her, if we want to touch her, it will be harder than ascending to heaven. That's because the king didn't see her true face." Bai Jiao clenched her fist and said, "She is not a gentle and lovely woman. If the king saw her acting like a shrew on the street that day, why would he make her his empress? But now that the coronation ceremony is inevitable, Jiao, the most important thing for you now is to take care of your eyes." Bai Jing's deep eyes revealed a hint of viciousness as he said, "As for those who bullied you, father will definitely avenge you." When Bai Jiao heard this, she covered her chest with her right hand and cried in grievance. She said intermittently, "But Jiao is not reconciled, not reconciled." Bai Jing's heart ached for his daughter, but there was nothing he could do. He could only grit his teeth and endure, waiting for a good opportunity to avenge his daughter. The next morning, when Luo Qingshun woke up, Lung Qingfeng was no longer in Weiyang Palace. She was covered with a blanket. Something was wrong. She didn't seem to have covered herself so tightly last night. "Miss, are you awake?" Xiao Yu gently knocked on the door and said, "The king asked me and Xiaomi to wait on you. When you wake up, we will help you change." "Yes." Luo Qingxu nodded and said, "Come in. Mrs. Complexion is very good." Xiao Yu said with a smile, "You must have slept very well." "Xiao Yu." Xiaomi seemed to want to remind her to pay attention, but Luo Qingshun waved her hand and said, "It's okay. I slept very well. Miss will have to try on a lot of clothes today. Also, you will have to go through all the ceremonies of the coronation ceremony." Xiao Yu handed her a towel and said, "But seeing Mrs. Complexion so good, this servant is relieved." This book came from Chapter 33:12. Luo Qingshun washed her face and took the clothes that Jewel handed to her. It was probably because the news of her staying at Weiyang Palace last night had spread throughout the palace, so the clothes sent by the Imperial Clothing Bureau today were especially luxurious. Luo Qingshun stood in front of the mirror and looked at herself in the mirror as her lips curled into a faint smile. She wore an ice blue cotton dress embroidered with gold, and a pair of soft shoes with soft soles made of satin, peacock thread, and pearls. Her long hair was tied up in a 5-phoenix bun, and there was a golden hairpin with 8 treasures on top of her head. There was a lotus flower on a stalk between her eyebrows, making her look extraordinary. "Miss is so pretty." Xiaomi tilted her head and praised from the bottom of her heart. "Xiaomi, you won't say that I'm unreasonable now, right?" Jewel rested her chin on her hands and looked at Luo Qingshun with an infatuated smile. "Miss is the most beautiful person I've ever seen in this world." Her smile was very pure, but her pair of clear eyes seemed out of place in this deep palace. "You two should prepare early," Luo Qingshun said with a chuckle. "After breakfast, we'll start studying about the Empress Hall." Although she couldn't feel it in Weiyang Palace, she could feel the difference in everyone's attitude towards her when she passed through the Imperial Garden and returned to her own palace. Some people called her Miss, and some eunuchs who liked to suck up to her even called her Queen. When they arrived at Snow Moon Palace, the scene in front of them gave them a fright. There was a dazzling array of gifts, all given by the officials and the nobles. The gifts all had the names of the givers, and among all the gifts, Luo Qingshun's eyes landed on a small box. It said that the giver was Xuanning. There was a light blue luminous pearl in the box. It looked ordinary under the sunlight, but dazzling in the darkness. "Miss, do you see that? Many people are giving you gifts." Jewel jumped up happily and said, "This is enough to prove your status in the palace." Xiaomi didn't say anything and started to record the names of the gifts and the givers. "Xiaomi, help me invite Miss Xuanning into the palace." Xiao Yu was slightly taken aback and said, "Xiaomi is busy with the accounts. Why don't I go on your behalf?" I'm afraid that you won't be able to convey my message clearly." Luo Qingshun turned to look at Xiaomi and said, "Help me make a trip. Tell her that I invited her to the palace to admire the flowers." Yes, Mississippi. 2 hours later, Xuanning entered the palace with a black veil over her face. She was very quiet. When Xiaomi handed her a cup of tea, she politely nodded and said, "Thank you, Queen." "I'm not the Queen yet," Luo Qingshan said with a faint smile. "There's no need to be reserved. I just want to chat with you." I don't deserve to chat with the Queen in my current state. I'm afraid that I'll dirty the Queen's eyes." She was disfigured. Jiao Jiao's finger protector had deeply scratched her face. Even if the doctor used the best medicine, it would still leave a long scar after it healed. In this life, all her beliefs were gone. But when she wanted to commit suicide, her brother told her what happened at the martial arts field. The woman from a state of you had used the same method to help her vent her anger and avenge her. She finally became the queen of the man she admired. She was envious, but also sincerely wished her well. Beauty or ugliness, it's just skin. Luo Qingshan took a sip of tea and said, "I know that Miss Xuanning is a kind person." This book came from Chapter 33:13. The luminous pearl you gave me is from the Yu Kingdom. Luo Qingshan picked it up and said, "The Yu Kingdom is rich in luminous pearls, but they're still priceless in the Yu Kingdom." Xuanning slowly lowered her head and circled her hands in front of her chest. "This is Xuanning's most precious thing. Then why did you give it to me?" Luo Qingshan put her right hand on her cheek as a bit of doubt appeared in her eyes. "Although your big brother Shui Rang is a scholar, he is an honest official. He has donated to many private schools and helped many homeless people. The Shui family shouldn't be rich." She didn't know Xuanning, and any woman would be jealous. However, some people would do evil things, while others wouldn't. Luo Qingshan had never been able to share a man with another woman, but Xuanning had given her the night pearl as a gift when she was so disappointed. She couldn't figure it out. "I wanted to hang myself yesterday, and my brother told me about Miss Luo." Xuanning took a deep breath and said, "I envy you for being that man's favorite, but I'm also grateful that you went against by Jiao Jiao for me." Luo Qingshan shrugged and asked, "How do you know I didn't do it to show off?" "A person's mouth can lie, but Xuanning doesn't think a person's eyes can lie." Xuanning pursed her lips and chuckled. "Miss Luo was born with such a stunning appearance. The moment you entered the martial arts arena, you attracted everyone's attention. Xuanning saw your eyes at that time." Luo Qingshan liked Xuanning a lot, and she liked her a lot. She liked this kind of girl who was like a spring breeze. It was like a cool breeze blowing in her heart, making her feel very comfortable. Such a kind girl shouldn't have such an ending. "You gave me a luminous pearl, so what should I give you?" Xuanning was startled and said, "Miss Luo, you don't have to give Xuanning anything. I just hope that you can treat the king well. I hope you'll be happy forever." As soon as she opened her mouth, the entire Snow Moon Palace seemed to have quieted down. Even the parrot at the door stopped chirping. After a while, Luo Qingshan said, "Why?" "Because I admire him, so no matter who stays by his side, as long as they're good to him, as long as he's happy, that's enough." Xuanning suddenly looked up as her tears fell down like pearls. She took a deep look at Luo Qingshan and said, "Xuanning has nothing to ask for." Her face was ruined, and she could only be accompanied by the lamp. Although he felt a little uncomfortable in his heart, this was fate. Who could escape the arrangement of fate? Xuanning. Luo Qingshan looked away and said, "Xuanning, don't make the scholar worry." "Many thanks, miss." Xuanning gave a deep bow. "This humble girl will leave now." After Xuanning left, Luo Qingshan asked the system about pills to restore her face. The system directly gave her a result. "Ding, 500 exchange points has been taken. Successfully exchanged for a box of beauty cream." "Why did you make such a decision?" "Because I understand the host's thoughts." Luo, the host can choose to return it. It really was a smart system. Luo Qingshan naturally didn't return the pill. She said to Xiaomi, "Help me call Miss Shui and give this to her." In the next second, she took out the face restoration pill from her sleeve and said, "Let her have a good rest. Admiration and love are different. The person she loves may not have appeared yet. Let her wait a little longer." This book came from Chapter 33:14. Xuanning stood outside the palace walls and slowly looked up at the vermilion walls. She narrowed her eyes, and a faint li guang flashed through her eyes. This was the place she had dreamed of coming to. This was the shore she had wanted to reach for her entire life. But now it had become a bubble. Miss Shui, please wait. Xiaomi walked over from not far away and said to Xuanning, my master told this servant to give this to you. It should be medicine for healing scars. Miss should try it. Xuanning's expression did not change at all because she knew that this kind of scar was not something that could be wiped away with some ointment. If it was possible, then all the disfigured women in the world would not have any problems. Thank you. Although she did not have any expectations, she still said with a smile, I hope Miss Luo can have a happy life and grow old with the king. This servant will definitely pass on Mrs. Words. Snow Moon Palace really did have a lot of gifts. Luo Qingshun counted over 100 gifts, and this did not include the things that had been sent over. Actually, she had not been in northern Liang City for long and did not know many people. These people were giving gifts to her on the surface, but in reality, they were all trying to please Lung Qingfeng. This cold and arrogant king probably never did these kinds of things, but this time he allowed the women of the court to give gifts to Snow Moon Palace. She had a rough idea of why he was doing this. The phoenix robe will be finished tonight, Xiao Yu said as she helped Luo Qingshan try on hair accessories. Just now, I want to ask about the progress of the wind cannon. They seem to be very busy. She pouted and felt like she had been left out. The attitude of the people in the palace towards her had changed so quickly that she felt like she was floating, suddenly being left out. She could not help but feel unhappy. You, Luo Qingshan turned to look at her and said, Xiaomi should have told you a lot of things. Always remember to be careful in the palace, no matter which master you serve. It was probably because Luo Qingshan's tone was a bit serious that Xiao Yu quickly knelt and said, this servant knows her wrongs. Miss, please punish me. What do I have to punish you for? Luo Qingshan held her hand and said, after the emperor's coronation, I will find a good job for you. Miss, are you chasing Xiao Yu away? Hearing this, Xiao Yu's tears fell. She covered her mouth and said, Xiao Yu will be careful in the future and will not cause trouble for Mississippi. She was so excited she was incoherent, and at this time, Xiaomi came in. Her expression changed, and she immediately knelt down and said, Miss, Xiao Yu has not been in the palace for long. If there's anything, no. And you is still young. And you is still young. And you is still. And you is. Miss really doesn't blame Little Jewel. Little Jewel wiped her tears and said, but Little Jewel wants to stay by Miss' side. My position cannot guarantee that you will be worry-free for the rest of your life. But other positions can guarantee that you will do well. Luo Qingshan looked at the sky outside and said, Li Mama will come in a while. She will take you to choose the position you like. Xiao Yu hesitated. She had 3 younger brothers at home. There were many people to support. The salary of a palace maid was too low, unless it was the head palace maid. But the head palace maid had too many things to do. She felt she could not do it. End of chapter. Chapter 33:15. Xiao Yu understands. She bowed and said, but if Miss needs me in the future, I will definitely be there. Okay. An hour later, Nanny Li took Xiao Yu away. From the beginning to the end, Xiaomi didn't say anything except for the first sentence she said. She helped Luo Qingshan brew a pot of her favorite Biluakun tea before bowing and saying, Xiaomi has done what Miss has arranged, but is it really possible for Miss Shui's face to recover? Do you know why I stayed and not Xiao Yu? Luo Qingshan took a sip of tea, a faint light flashing through her clear eyes. This servant does not know. Actually, I know. Luo Qingshan raised her eyebrows and said, because I am smart enough, so I know that with Xiao Yu's personality, if she stays by my side, not only will she offend many people, I will also offend many people. I have always taught her to be careful with her words and actions, but her heart always wants to break free from the imprisonment of thousands of kilometers. Miss, Xiaomi immediately knelt and said, Xiao Yu is kind. She will not harm Mississippi, I know. Luo Qingshan smiled kindly and said, I just feel that she is more suitable to stay in Snow Moon Palace and become a first-rank palace maid. Actually, this is for her own good. If she works in other places, as long as she works hard, she can at least have a meteoric rise. So this servant feels that Nyang Nyang's decision is not wrong, but I am afraid that Xiaoyu will have a grudge, so I have not dared to say anything. Xiaomi pursed her lips and said, "In the future, I will serve Miss well." Luo Qingchun curled her lips into a smile. "You really are smart." Xiaomi's intelligence was somewhat like hers. Most of the time, the choice she made was to see through things and not say it. This kind of person would have a bottom line for everything and would not betray her. The empress coronation was in full swing. Lung Qingfeng seemed to be busier than her. When they met again, it was already dinner time. But this time, the food was a bit special. It was all fragrant roasted food. Roasted beef, roasted pheasant, roasted fish. For some reason, when Luo Qingshan saw these things, she would think of the state preceptor. Ever since the competition in the martial arts stage ended, no one knew where he had gone. When everyone wanted to curry favor with her and give her gifts, he didn't even give her a single copper coin. What has this old man been up to lately? Could it be that he's suddenly reminded of his past when he saw that the cold prince is about to confer the title of empress? "Greetings to the king," Eunuch Du's sharp voice sounded. Luo Qingchun stuck her head out to look at Lung Qingfeng, who was walking in from the door. He had changed into a black robe and was still wearing the green fox mask. He looked like a young man who had walked out of a painting. He was so handsome that he couldn't be imagined. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 80%. Please. She thought that he was handsome, so why did he add her favorability points? Looking at me like this will make me nervous. Lung Qingfeng gently patted her head and said, "Are you too busy today?" "Isn't that so?" Luo Qingshan picked up the roasted fish and ate 2 bites before saying, "I've tried on over 50 sets of clothes, and the shoes under the flower pots really are hard to wear. Be patient for a bit. When the ceremony is over, you don't need to wear them anymore." Ah, Lung Qingfeng was teasing her. She was thinking too much. After that, he quickly explained, "My meaning is that you don't need to wear the hard-to-wear flower pot shoes." Chapter 33:16. That's right. Luo Qingshan suddenly thought of something and said, "I haven't seen the state teacher today. Is he busy with something else?" Lung Qingfeng was stunned for a moment. His eyes flickered as he said, "He has more important things to do." "Private matters?" "Yes." "Oh." Luo Qingshan looked like she suddenly understood something, making Lung Qingfeng on the side knit her brows in confusion as she asked, "What does your expression mean? You don't know about this." Luo Qingshan looked at Lung Qingfeng proudly and said, "This state teacher has lived for most of his life and probably doesn't even have a wife." "King, don't you think it's strange? He might have his own thoughts." At this moment, Lung Qingfeng suddenly didn't know how to explain. After all, this was a character he created. Shouldn't it be normal for him to not have a wife and children? "King, what you said is wrong." Luo Qingshan pursed her lips and shook her head. "Everyone in this world has their own thoughts. But if he doesn't get married, then he's either been hurt by a woman or he's not good in the male aspect. He's not bad." The next second, Lung Qingfeng suddenly stood up and said righteously, "He's a very normal man." This was Luo Qingchen's first time seeing Lung Qingfeng like this. His face was a bit red, and there was a helpless anger in his eyes that people couldn't see clearly. "King, why are you so agitated?" Luo Qingchen said resentfully. "I'm talking about the state teacher. It's not like..." At this moment, the layers of fog in Luo Qingchen's mind suddenly disappeared. Those things that she couldn't figure out seemed to have all been figured out at this moment. Why had she never seen Lung Qingfeng and the state teacher together? Why did Lung Qingfeng give her a sense of déjà vu? And the most important point was, why did she always have a favorable impression of him under unknown circumstances? In reality, it should be he had always been by her side. So, he didn't send some state teacher to pick her up. He personally came to pick her up. This expression. Lung Qingfeng raised her eyebrows slightly, and the corners of her mouth raised into an extremely faint smile. She looked at her and said, "I've probably already guessed it." "Huh?" Luo Qingshun pointed at the handcuffed pheasant. "So it's like this. I wanted to tell you directly, but I wanted to find out how you feel about me through indirect means, so I used another identity. Lung Qingfeng revealed a touch of gentleness in the dark night. He looked at her with a bewitching voice and said, "But it can't be considered another identity. The state preceptor and I are the same person." Why? Because there are some things that are completely different when said by the imperial preceptor and the prince of northern Yang. Luo Qingchun suddenly said, "I think I understand." Although she was a little unhappy that he didn't tell her the truth, he still personally came to the UAU border to pick her up. The touched feeling in her heart had completely overshadowed her unhappiness. So Lung Qingfeng was such a person. She suddenly believed that he didn't believe in romance. It was only after he met her that he changed. "Originally, I wanted to tell you, so I prepared this table." Lung Qingfeng's originally gentle and doting face suddenly became serious. He frowned, and his face turned cold, suddenly giving people an exceptionally cold feeling. End of chapter. Chapter 33:17. Could it be? Something bad is about to happen? Lung Qingfeng's expression made her a bit afraid. After all, he had the ability to see the future. Now that the emperor's coronation was approaching, he had such a heavy expression. Something big must have happened. "It's nothing." He lightly shook his head and said with a bit of jealousy, "My empress, there are some people that you can't let go of." Luo Qingshan was stunned and a trace of doubt flashed in her clear eyes. "You wouldn't be talking about Rong Mo, right?" Although she didn't think it was possible. After all, she knew how ruthless Rong Mo was. But other than Rong Mo, she couldn't think of anyone else that could make Lung Qingfeng say such words. "There's a very powerful swordsman in Yu country. Does Qingshan know about him?" Lung Qingfeng's eyes recovered their gentleness as he quietly looked at her. Luo Qingshan recalled the previous owner's memories. There weren't many capable people in Yu country. There were even fewer top-level swordsmen and hidden guards compared to Jade country and northern Yang country. Since Lung Qingfeng mentioned him, it meant that this swordsman should be an expert. "Are you talking about Xiejio?" "Yes. A pot of wine every 10 steps, unstoppable for 1,000 miles. Xiejio was a very outstanding swordsman, and he was a heavy swordsman. Luo Qingchun had only seen him once, and he was indeed one of Rong Mo's people." "So you mean that Rong Mo sent Xiejio to northern Liang?" "Yes. Does he want to kill me or—" Luo Qingchun slightly knit her brows and hesitated before saying, "He shouldn't be here to take me back. I think I know better than anyone what kind of person he is. For the sake of his country, he would do anything to hurt the original owner of the body again and again. How could a man who pushed the original owner of the body out of the country take her back? Moreover, he didn't bring her back in the previous owner's world. Why would he send Xiejio here? I don't think he's here to kill you." Lung Qingfeng narrowed his eyes and looked like a storm was coming. The sinister look in his eyes almost froze her. He looked in a direction not far away and said, "He probably can't bear to. He wants to take it back. He is not that kind of person." Luo Qingchun hurriedly said, "To him, his empire is more important than anything else. Giving away a woman is nothing. If Northern Liang could give him more troops, he would probably send his entire harem here." This was her thorough analysis of Rong Mo's character, and there was absolutely no mistake about it. "Do you hate him so much because— did you once love him deeply?" When Lung Qingfeng said this, his deep eyes looked somewhat sorrowful. In fact, he had been constantly telling himself that everyone had a past. As long as she belonged to him now and in the future, he didn't care about the past. But why did he feel so sad when he saw how angry she was because of Rong Mo? "Love my ass." Luo Qingshan placed her hands on her hips, her face ashen. She crossed her arms and solemnly explained, "I've never loved Rong Mo, be it in the past or in the past." Although it wasn't easy for her to explain the matter of the original owner, she wasn't willing to let herself suffer in silence. Even if it was a weak and literal explanation, she still had to defend herself. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 90%. Why could anger also increase favorability? Your angry appearance makes me feel it's very cute. Lung Qingfeng softly stroked her face and said, "Don't be so red. I never care about the past. I just want the future." Chapter 33:18. Xie had already been in northern Liang City for 3 days. His investigative skills were very strong, so 3 days was enough for him to understand what had happened to Luo Qingshun after she came to northern Liang City. However, even he didn't expect that the northern Liang king would actually confer Luo Qingshun as northern Liang's empress. The empress conferring ceremony would be held tomorrow. 2 days ago, he had already sent this news to Yu Country and was waiting for King Rongmo's instructions. Yu Country. Reporting to the king, Lord Xie sent the news back. As soon as he arrived outside the palace, this servant rushed in to deliver it. Rongmo frowned as he received the note. Xie was a very smart person, so even if he encountered any difficulties, he wouldn't send a letter to him most of the time. If he sent a letter, it meant that he had encountered a very troublesome problem that he couldn't solve himself. When he saw the words on the note, his face instantly paled and he couldn't even stand properly. King Eunuch immediately supported him and said, "The king must take care of the country. Otherwise, this servant will not be able to absolve himself from the blame, even if he dies 10,000 times. Immediately prepare a brush and ink. This prince wants to send a letter to Xie." For some reason, Rongmo was very nervous at this moment. There was an unbearable feeling in his heart, as if he had lost something and felt empty. He had imagined the scene of Luo Qingshun going to northern Liang City countless times. Perhaps it would be an ordinary scene, or perhaps she would suffer as a hostage. She used to be a heaven's fate master, so it wouldn't matter if she suffered a bit. As long as there was a chance, he would keep his promise and bring her back from northern Liang. However, he didn't expect that the northern Liang king would actually confer her the title of empress. That's right. She was originally very outstanding. When they first met, she was like a fairy that entered his life under the moonlight. He had once cherished her, but as he gained more and more things, he no longer cherished those who had always been by his side. Until one day, when she really left him, the sense of loss in his heart was accompanied by bursts of pain, making him feel suffocated. The messenger pigeon sent a few short words. On the front, he asked Xie to think of a way to enter the palace to find Luo Qingshun. On the back, he sent a message to Luo Qingshun. There are trees on a mountain and branches on the tree. The heart pleases the Lord, but the Lord does not know. That was what Rongmo wanted to say to Luo Qingshun. He had many feelings for her in his heart, but because of the country's affairs, he kept it in his heart. Because of the reinforcement from the northern Liang country, the Yu country had forced the Jade country to retreat. This time, it was a huge blow to Jade Nation, and they would probably need a long time to recover. Luo Qingshun was a hostage. Now, the northern Liang kingdom's army had already been returned. In exchange, the northern Liang kingdom should return Luo Qingshun. After all, in his opinion, Luo Qingshun was still the Yu state's imperial concubine Qing. He, Rongmo, had 3,000 beauties in his harem, and she was the woman he loved the most. When Xie received the urgent messenger pigeon, it was already evening. He picked up the heavy sword that swordsmen often used and headed towards the northern Liang palace. He wasn't completely confident in facing Lung Qingfeng, but he had to at least hand the item over to Luo Qingshun. Only then would he not let down the king of Yu's trust in him. Snow Moon Palace. Luo Qingshun wore a moon-white cloak and sat quietly playing the zither. Lung Qingfeng had asked her if she wanted to meet Xie. If she wasn't willing, he had the ability to prevent Xie from entering the palace. After all, he knew everything about his actions. This book came from Chapter 33:19. Luo Qingshun thought about it and decided to meet Xie in the end. At that time, Lung Qingfeng's brows would slightly knit, but she smiled and said, "I have many reasons to not meet him, but my heart is open. If I meet him, so be it. It won't change anything." Ding! The guzheng gently fell, and the pear tree gently swayed. Pear blossoms fell, and the air was filled with a faint floral fragrance. This scene was even more beautiful under the moonlight. It was a pity that this beautiful scene was filled with the feeling of a battle. Since you're here, there's no need to hide. Luo Qingshun casually plucked the guzheng and said, he should know about Prince Lung's ability. How could he not know about it? Xiejio's heart suddenly trembled, and his hair stood on end. He obviously knew that Prince Lung Qingfeng had the ability to see the future for a short period of time. However, seeing once was better than hearing 100 times. He knew that his detection and counter-detection abilities were unparalleled. He could enter the northern Liang royal palace with his own abilities without any obstructions. It was a pity that abilities were different from being a god. Even if he could avoid being discovered by the northern Liang royal palace's guards, he wouldn't be able to escape Prince Lung's eyes. So why did he let me meet him? Xiejio's right hand gripped his sword tightly as beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. At this moment, he was in a state of high concentration. If Lung Qingfeng set up an inescapable trap, his life would probably end here tonight. Because I also want to hear what Rong Imo sent me here for. Luo Qingshun slowly stood up. Under the moonlight, her face was devastatingly beautiful. Xiejio slightly looked away. He felt that the imperial concubine Qing around him was different from before. In the past, when he saw her, she would always carefully follow behind the king. She seemed to be very pampered, but there was always a faint sadness in her eyes. But now, there was a mischievous look in her clear and bright eyes. It hadn't even been half a month since she left your country. Why did she change so much? She even called the king Rong Imo, imperial concubine Qing. If you want to leave the northern Liang palace alive, I advise you not to call me that. Luo Qingshun plucked the strings of the zither and said, because someone will be unhappy. Although he said very decisively that even if she wanted to see Xiejio, he would not stop her, let alone eavesdrop on her private affairs. However, that man with such a strong sense of belonging and possessiveness might not be able to sit still in Weiyang Palace now. Xiejio took a deep breath. He took out a note from his waist and handed it to Luo Qingshun. This is the note that the king wanted me to give to Qing Fei. Miss Luo. She slowly got up and took the note with her right hand. The pear blossoms gently fell on her fingertips. She narrowed her eyes slightly. After reading the note, the corners of her mouth curled up into a mocking smile. Miss Luo, there are trees on the mountain and branches on the tree. My heart pleases the Lord. The Lord doesn't know. Luo Qingshun shrugged and said, this is the song of the Yu people. It has been rumored in Yu country for many years. The original owner liked this song very much. She had once sung a song of the Yu people for him, but he went to deal with the country's affairs before listening to it. Actually, Rong Imo was smart. He knew everything, but he was unwilling to say anything. However, this kind of person wanted everything. Especially when he knew that he was about to lose something, he became even more extreme and did absurd things. Chapter 33:20. Lord Xie, you are a swordsman in Yu country and should have protected Rong Imo for many years. Luo Qingshun put the no in the candle before saying, the Yu country can't beat the Jade country, so they used me as an exchange for troops from the northern cold country to force the Jade country back. Am I right? Xiejio was stunned. He didn't understand why Luo Qingshun would say this. He frowned and nodded, yes. So Yu King Rong Mo's meaning is that he will return the troops he lent and take back the people he gave away? Lady Luo, I'm not an object that he can order to come and go as he pleases. Luo Qingshun narrowed her cold eyes, and her lips curled into a cold smile as she said with a soft snort, because of him, I lost all my powers as a destiny master. I don't owe him anything. Everything is what he owes me. She paused, and a cold glint flashed across her eyes. I'm not going back. To the original owner, Yu country was a place filled with sorrow, and to her, Yu country was a place that made her feel disgusted. This subordinate understands. Xiejio bowed. Lady Luo will become the queen of northern Liang tomorrow. You will definitely enjoy endless wealth. You're a smart person. Luo Qingshun sneered. When you return to Yu country, tell Rong Imo what I said to you tonight. From today onwards, no matter how big the world is, We will be enemies the next time we meet. That day in the Supreme Court's prison, she had said all the things that should and shouldn't be said. Wasn't it too late to turn back now? Xiejio heard this, and his expression changed. He could only bow respectfully. Yes, you can leave. Luo Qingchun looked at Xiaomi and said, My maid will send you out of the royal palace. Don't think about entering the northern cold royal palace again. You being able to stand in front of me isn't because you're strong. It's because of his orders. Yes, Xiaomi slowly walked forward. Young master, please come this way. Actually, she didn't have any grudges against Xiejio, so there was no need for her to be so harsh. But she thought that he also understood that her words were not directed at him. They were all directed at his master. After Xiejio left, Luo Qingchun couldn't help laughing coldly in her heart. Rong Mo, Rong Mo, you've done so many things to hurt the original owner of this body. Why is it that when one day she really belongs to someone else, you're not willing to accept it? Perhaps in the eyes of the original owner, Rong Mo still had some feelings for her, so she always had fantasies about him. However, she would never understand that there was a common flaw in the character of the heartless people in this world. The more unobtainable something was, the more one wanted it. The easier it was to obtain something, the less one cherished it. In the past, in Rong Mo's heart, the original owner would always belong to him. No matter how much hardship she went through, no matter what he did to her, she would always belong to him. But perhaps only now did he realize that some things would never come back the moment they were given out. Rong Mo was probably anxious because if he wasn't, he wouldn't have done such a thankless thing. Although Jade Country was heavily injured, its strength was much greater than U Country. As long as it rested for a while, it would be able to attack U Country again. Rong Mo's actions this time caused U Country to lose its most important backer. Even a fool would know that Lung Qingfeng would never help him again. This book came from